Good evening, everybody, and welcome along once again to Evolution Sim Racing ahead of our scheduled broadcast of the 9th round of our GT4 Sprint Championship tonight at the historic Sebring International Raceway in Sebring, Florida. A particularly challenging set of 17 corners will be in front of our championship drivers this evening around the bumpy and harsh surface of this 6-kilometre layout, but one that is full of rich history. My name is Joseph Glass, and as always, I'm thrilled to be joined once again in the commentary box by Mr. Dara Thacker. And Dara, so we caught up last night to run through round 8 of the championship, and now we meet once again for the penultimate round of the championship, where some of our championships may be decided, but where others may continue on into the final round, neck and neck.
Notably the Premier and the Evo class, where we've got two runaway championship leaders who could wrap it up as early as the opening race tonight, not even having to wait for the double point for the 45-minute race we're going to have later. But you know me, I'm going to be keeping up to the speed, trying to update the points as we go and try and work out if anybody's in a championship winning position early on into the evening.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It looks as though we could have two of those who may wrap things up tonight. Nothing confirmed, obviously. A lot can happen in our feature race, particularly tonight. A long time to drive around a tricky circuit, so plenty of mistakes could unfold. But one thing's for sure, our Elite Championship will go all the way, I'm sure, tonight. So let's take a look, as always, at the formalities ahead of the two races that we have on offer tonight. So, first up, our sponsors. We have Kame, who are providing all of our series trophies, those of which that the drivers are ever so close to getting their hands on. Alongside them, we have GP2 Group, Keenan Eco Energy, and Media. So thank you to all four of those sponsors for putting on some of the trophies and making all of this happen. Those trophies will be awarded to the top 5 in each of our 3 classes. At the moment, we'll run through which of those drivers are currently in position to take one of those trophies. And then the top 5 of the winning teams championship. That's a further 15 trophies on offer, given to each one of the 3 drivers, or 2, mostly 3, present in each of those top 5 teams. So, a run first through the Elite standings, the most competitive championship, at least in terms of the 2 frontrunners that we have anywhere in GT4 this season. So, leading the way by just 24 points is Justin Rame of Grid & Go Esports, the Canadian driver in the Porsche, which, as we said, it's been the car to be in this season. He leads the way ahead of the Dennett Racing driver of William Humphrey. Just 24 points separate the two of them. Some unfortunate results for the pair of them last week. Actually, looking at the history, we see a hell of a lot of podiums for for both of those drivers throughout the whole season. Last week, though, a couple of P8s, P7s and P5s for these guys. So let's see if they can continue their run on the podium and challenge each other all the way to the end. We sure want that to run on until the end of next week, where we can crown our champion. Luke Lucchese is next up, but he's 104 points adrift. Not quite out of it yet, but as we said last night, even not last week, I think he will be fully aware that he's not in the running for the title. And let's see if he can hang on to that top 3 spot. Something that I'm sure that he will want to do, and I'm sure that he will do. Ryan Ottens is next up, the second South African driver for Alpha One Esports. He's on a nice round 600 points. He got himself up on the podium with a P2 finish last time out. And Ben Chalcraft, the leading Spontex CDM car, only 30 points away from Ryan Ottens, and he's doing himself, well, only 2 podiums to his name. So some consistent results for Ben throughout the season, which gets him up into the top 5 and with his hands on the trophy. Jimmy Vyman is next in the Porsche. He's not so far behind. 506 points away from a trophy for Jimmy, ahead of Sebastian Bonnet and Jeremy Chioka at the top 8. Done very well for himself last week. Was unfortunate to lose out behind Luke Lucchese on the final corner of the final lap of the opening round, but did come home to win in the end in the final sprint race. Jay Corley missed the session last week, but he should be back tonight in the Aston Martin. The 395 points for him, 44 points away from Jeremy Chioka ahead. And the top 10 with Jeremy Orlemans. Charles Draycott's with us. tonight in P11, and Thomas Sebring all the same in P12 as well.
It's looking like an interesting championship there, but it's a little bit wider out in the Premier class. Mike Murphy for the DXT Emerald team getting that big 188-point lead, 10 wins in the 19 races we've had so far this season. Really has been dominant, and he got 2 wins and a P3 at the Red Bull Ring last week. Stephen Donnelly's his closest challenger, and at this point really his only challenger, 188 points back. He's going to have to be pretty much perfect from here on out and hope that basically catastrophe befalls Mike Murphy. Martin Kenyon is still in with a shot mathematically. He's 218 points back, but he really does need an absolute Christmas miracle, and we're still a month away from that today. Fix himself into the top spot. But then again, you look a little bit further back. Josh Ostick, yes, is on 609, but Dennis Curler back on 459 means that the top, second, third, and fourth, Donnelly, Kenyon, and Ostick, even if they're a little bit too far back for the title, they're still looking like they're going to get themselves into the top 5 and give themselves one of those very nice looking Kame trophies. So they'll be pretty pleased on that. Curler, though, isn't far ahead of Rob Pickle. Only 2 points split them, and Rob Pickle has 39 points he can fall back on if he needs to tonight. Dennis Curler has nothing after missing Road Atlanta right back in the second round of the season, but in this evening, 150 points up for grabs. I'd be surprised, really, if we saw Rob Pickle picking up less than 39 points. Looking further back, Hussein Sarakadesla, he didn't have the best of results last week at the Red Bull Ring, had to drop that round and still sees himself in P7, 406 points, I should say. But he's got to be careful because Pierre Perez, Baz Schilstra, and Rob Smith are chasing him inside the top 10. And even though all 3 of those drivers missed last week, I think a couple of them will be hoping to try and recoup a little bit of that ground that they lost to get themselves back towards the likes of Hussein Sarakadesla, Rob Pickle, Dennis Curler, who are nearer the top 5. End of the top 12, though, Maxim Dimitrov and James Bostock. He missed the opening couple of rounds, but he's got himself into the top 12 now. We'll see what he can do, but he's got Henry Kuhlen and Jonas Larson just behind him trying to get onto that graphic.
Yeah, that battle for the final spot in the top 5 will be interesting. It's probably the closest 2 drivers that we've got up and down our championship. So let's see, keep an eye on Curler and Pickle tonight, see who gets themselves in prime position ahead of the final round. And finally then, the Evo class standings. So the man who had an absolutely electric first half of the season hasn't quite had the same results in the second half. Only 1 podium in the last 3 races for Mr. Francois Brandet, and having picked up a few extra license points, finds himself starting at the back of the grid. He will not be able to compete in qualifying, so all the all the lap times, shall I say, that he's doing now are all in practice. He's not going to be able to sit any laps during quali and will start toward the back of the grid. He's nearly got job done though, 250 points left to win. He needs 105 tonight if he's to win that championship. So let's see if he can get that done over Andrew Fellows, who sits comfortably in P2. We're not too comfortable. John Ludbrook just behind him, 26 points away. The battle for second still very much on between the Mercedes flatline car and the Porsche Came GP2 car. Outside the top 4 then, it's Matthew Noel, the Canadian driver, who's 60 points off of the top 3. Still probably going to find himself comfortably inside the top 5, although James Howell found himself some form last week, being the first man in a long time and the first man in GT4 to get himself a hat-trick of race victories. Obviously this time last season in the TCR it was a bit easier because we had just the 1 format. However, this season, with a rare opportunity to get 3 races under the belt, he managed to convert all 3 race victories, bringing home maximum points. So he's on a charge for sure, and I'm sure that he would like to keep that up this week. Let's see what James can do. Steve Rubino, just 28 points away from a trophy, so again, he'll fancy his chances, but as you can see there, a handful of DNFs, which won't do himself any favours in the run-in to this last few races, but he is on home soil tonight. The American driver racing around the American circuit. I'm sure he will have put in some extra practice and probably has a little bit of a Sebring in his step ahead of this round. Luis Nevea in P7. He's only 31 points the difference, but he's got Danny Weir right in behind him. Just 12 points back is the McLaren driver for DXT Cyan, ahead of Robin Noel Brown, the privateer driver actually, who currently sits in P9. Wasn't here last week, but he's been on the podium every single race in the second half of the season. so far. Let's keep our eyes out for him, see if he can get back in one of the lone BMWs, not too many of them on the grid. We only had one there last week, and we've got potentially him back again with us tonight. Gareth Newton will round off the top 10, only 8 points off the back of Robin Brown, so he could definitely get himself into P9. And Charlie Stothard, he had an exciting race last night, was definitely mixing it in with the action, got himself on the podium for the second time this season. Started late and missed a few rounds, and now he's back, and hopefully he'll be with us tonight, because it was quite entertaining watching he and James do battling last week for the drivers. And then finally, in the top 12, Steve Ewing is still there. He's not with us anymore, but he still managed to stay inside that top 12 for the time being. Let's see if he can stay there by the end of the season, or if someone can come out the shadows and pip him away.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, looking down the rest of the order, it is close with the likes of Dale Williams, but Dale Williams hasn't been here for a while. Actually, Brooks maybe, but Steve will be trying to hang on to that. In the teams, I think we're looking at quickly. Yeah. It is quite a big advantage for DXT. You can see what's that, nearly 588 points is the difference between DXT Emerald and Cyan, but DXT really have dominated so far this season. Murphy, Donnelly and Branday have done just a stellar job. Of course, Murphy and Branday dominating in their divisions, Donnelly's P2 in his division. So it really is looking good for the Emerald team. Good stuff from the Cyan team as well to keep themselves ahead of Dennett Racing, with William Humphrey leading the charge there. Carme GP2 have really had a bit of a resurgence through the season with James Bostock coming back into the fray, and Newton and Ludbrook being able to get in some good performances. And Flatline Racing as well, the other team, P5, other team over 1,000 points. I think the likes of Spontex, RDSA, those two in 6th and 7th will be looking to try and get themselves over that 1,000 point mark tonight, as they're not too far off.
Very, very good then. So let's join the drivers on trackside. We've got just over a minute to go in this practice session before the drivers commence their qualifying laps. It's not a very long lap, but it's quite a long lap, over 2 minutes at the front. In fact, the lap time's so long you can't even see that 2 in the top next to Justin Rehm. So it's going to be really, really time precious for these guys to get out, get a good lap under the belt, and get on with things, really. So currently then, 2:08 is the fastest time of the session. That's for Justin Rehm, the current championship leader, and he's just under 2/10 clear of William Humphrey. Let's see if those times are similar by the time we get to qualifying. And Dara, this is the first time that I'll be broadcasting around this circuit, so it'll be interesting to see how these guys do battle. I know a lot of them will have driven this circuit already in GT3, especially with ESR, if not in the officials this week.
Yeah, it's another circuit as well that has a lot of iRacing attention to it, particularly towards the start of the season. They have the iRacing official 1,000 miles, which I know a lot of the drivers have done. I did see a couple of drivers in these GT4s somewhere, I can't exactly remember where, but recently. So, they're clearly getting themselves around. But Sebring is one of those circuits where, it's not been resurfaced in a very long time. It's one of the characteristics of the track. But it allows the racing to be that little bit more different. And, of course, being on an old air script in a couple of different directions, in the same sort of way as Silverstone, but in a different way because we're still using the more original tarmac, it means that it's a little bit wider in parts. The racing can go off the circuit a little bit more. There's far more runoff on the outside. So really going to be interesting just to see how drivers can play this. You're thinking at Sunset Bend at the final corner, turn 1, very wide parts of the circuit. You can get 2-3 wide. The only issue is it can tighten on the exit, and that's where problems may arise.
Yeah, particularly thinking as well, the Le Mans corner, the final penultimate corner, the driver's basically going fully off the circuit there to open up that corner. So plenty of opportunity for guys to take different lines through what is 17 corners around a very, very tricky circuit. Let's see who's going to be the first one out. It looks as though it's Luis Nevea. He's making his way around in the flatline machine at the moment, and we can ride on with a few of these guys as they get underway. Yannis Aubert is on the circuit, so he may qualify tonight, something that we don't see him doing all that often. I was going to say as well that James Howarth has actually set 14 laps during that practice session, most of any driver on the grid, so he's definitely looking to continue that fine run of form that he had last time out at the Red Bull Ring.
I think there's a couple of drivers who are really going to be looking to capitalise on their form that they found themselves in. It is difficult at the circuit like this. This isn't in any way the same as the Red Bull Ring. It's almost the complete opposite. Across the pond, it's very different in terms of the characteristics. Opportunities to overtake are a little bit harder to come by. You've really got to work for them and be careful with how you place the car. So definitely going to be an intriguing one. But I think for our championship leaders, who haven't necessarily had a great couple of events, Justin Rame and William Humphrey in the elite standings, and Francois Brandet in the Evo would cover that. I think this is the kind of circuit where you want to keep your nose clean on the opening lap, because it is difficult. It really is difficult to not have any kind of contact. Turn 1, 2, and 2, turn 3. It gets very tight through the opening sector before you get out onto the straight towards the hairpin. So, there are regularly incidents, particularly in the real life world, but also in sim racing as well. You've got to really pick your way through carefully. And that's just really going to be one of the characteristics of the racing tonight. But for the championship leaders and for the drivers who have had a good run of momentum, they can't really afford hanging around. They've got to really try and make those moves. If they want to try and gain for the championship lead, they can't afford to sit and wait, twiddle their thumbs, and maybe wait for an opportunity to arise, because that won't happen here. So they've got to really get this done effectively. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the drivers approach a 15-minute race, knowing that their result will directly affect a 45-minute race, which has double points coming after it.
Absolutely right. Let's ride on with Yannis Olber then, who, as we said, doesn't normally take part in qualifying, but he's giving us some viewing to look here. He's got a lot of understeer there, but he's just about kept it on the racing surface, and his head's now through the kink of 2 into 3, and then a tricky one for me at least, turn 5. It seems tighter than it is. It tightens at the apex, and then you've got to get the car rotated, and now you start running down through turn 6, the big bend before the first heavy braking zone of the lap at the hairpin. Down at turn 7, you've got a long time to think about braking. Is it going to go past the cones? Probably. Just about on the stoppers, just after the 4th cone there. And nicely slowed down into first gear even for Aubert, as he exits toward now 8 and 9 through Fangio. And let's see, with Yannis doing what he does, he'll probably get himself right at the front, actually. It'd be interesting to see what his quality times are like alongside the likes of Rame and Humphrey. See if he can split those guys toward the front of the grid. That was through 10, now 11. And then another tricky 90-degree right-hander at Tower. Avoid the curb on the outside, but I think you can afford to run a little bit wide if you need to, which he did. We saw Yannis dip a tyre in the gravel on his outlap. Keeps it nicely over the curb there. You can run on that right-hand side curb, chop the inside through Bishop. Now you've got to get it slowed down for 15. Only a couple of braking zones to go. Very easy to lose the rear through this corner, inviting to carry a lot of speed. Now this Le Mans, this is where we see them go fully off the circuit. Carry as much speed as he can. He didn't quite hit the apex then. He's gone wide. I'm not sure if that's going to be an off-track for Yannis. More than likely, I think. But let's finish the lap and watch him head through the wonderfully technical sunset bend. Almost 2 or 3 corners in one, really. You've got to pick your entry and try and get it tucked in. I'm sure we'll see many drivers throughout the race and qualifying taking completely different lines here. Some looking for a better entry, others looking for the exit. A good lap by Yannis Aubert as he crosses the line. Let's see if anyone can beat him straight off the bat. No one else is going to get there first, aside from Stephen Donnelly and Jeremy Chioka, and that was an invalid lap time by Yannis Aubert on the exit of Le Mans there.
Yeah, unfortunate for him to pick up that invalidation, but he can go again. The problem is that obviously with the longer lap time, you've got a little bit less time to hang around with it. You've got to get the lap times in as soon as you possibly can, because you're not going to be able to, well, I think they are just about going to be able to complete their full complement of laps, but it's going to be close regardless. Good lap times coming up from the likes of Ryan Ottens. It's a very good lap time from Chioka to be ahead of still everybody else so far, with the likes of Lucchese getting lap time in, Casper Brinkhausen, who is newer to the championship, getting a lap time in, crossing the line now with Dennis Curler in that bright pink entry, and Curler can go into P. I think that was also an invalidated lap there for him, so that's not great for Dennis, but he will go again, I'm sure. Still lots of times yet to be set, and Justin Rame is one I was waiting for, and you can see nearly over 2/3 of a second ahead of the rest.
Yeah, crazy good lap for Justin there right at the start. 6/10 ahead. We saw Mike Murphy there taking the provisional pole time by half a second to Stephen Donnelly in the Premier class, but a quite tight field there in the Evos. Luis Nevea leads the way. Only 7 of those guys have set their laps. And then let's ride on board. Where is he? William Humphrey. I'm looking for him here. Yet to set a valid lap time. Let's see where he is on the circuit. Here he is heading in toward the hairpin. A bit of pressure when you don't set that banker lap, when you've only got 2 more to go. You know, you want to kind of have a lap time under your belt so you can really send it in that final run. But Will has to be careful now, try and get some good sector times under his belt. He may know that he's got the one over Justin, but he does need to get that lap time in. And at the moment, Justin leads fastest sector 1, fastest sector 5, and the fastest sector 6. William Humphrey has just clocked in the fastest 4th sector, so he will be right up there, I'm sure, by the time he crosses the line. He actually led the fastest 7th sector as well. So 7 sectors throughout this lap, according to iRacing. I'd prefer if it was always 3, but you know, we can't have everything. I'm sure William Humphrey is going to maybe disrupt definitely the front row of the grid. I'd be surprised if he's 6/10 behind Justin in this lap, but maybe it's not going to be enough to get in the low 0.3s. Let's keep our eyes on that though. Only a few seconds to go. Meanwhile, Kenyon there punching in a time good enough for P3. And Donnelly, I think, extended the margin down to Mike Murphy. There's Henry Coolan coming in P4. We'll continue this lap with Will.
And let's see what he can do in his Senate racing car. It's also good to see that we've got good numbers tonight, especially considering that we've got, what is that, 23, 24, 34, and more coming with a couple of drivers not able to set a lap time yet and serving qualifying bans. So this is going to be an exciting evening's worth of racing. Ostick's gone P4. Where does Humphrey go in his quest to try and chase down Justin Rome for the title? Can he pop it up towards the front? Yes, he can. I thought for a moment it could have been an invalidated lap, but he's going to go into P2, exactly where he needs to be. The only issue is I think he'd rather start ahead of Justin Rome if he possibly could, but for the time being he's going to have to cope with P2. But our championship leader in the Premier, Mike Murphy, goes purple, 2.5 tenths clear.
Yeah, very good from Mike, as to be expected as well. We'll be on our final flying laps already, something that seems to go very quickly. That's a little bit wide by Will on his final lap. Let's see, is anybody about to cross the line? It doesn't look like we've got anybody nearing the start. Here's Danny Weir. He's about to start. Let's see if he can improve. Currently down there in P8, and he does improve, but it's not enough to gain a position towards Ashley Brooks, currently sitting in P7. And then next across the line is going to be, it looks like it's going to be Jeremy Chioka, who's doing well for himself at the top, although he'll be aware that the 2 drivers behind him, Ryan Ottens and Luke Lucchese, less than a tenth away, and those guys still to cross the line. They're actually neck and neck, Chioka and Ottens, as they come down the Ullman Straight toward turn 17. Let's watch Ryan as he enters in that McLaren. And is he going to disturb those on the front row of the grid? Something tells me he's not, but he could definitely take P3 away from Jeremy Chioka here.
Yeah, to the line. Let's see. What can the lap time be for Ryan Ottens as he crosses the line? He's only 800ths behind, but he has to sit in behind in the end. A 9.165, about a tenth slower than what Chioka did on the last time around. Chioka, though, not improving himself. A couple of improvements in the likes of Steve Rubino going up into second in the Evo class. More drivers going to be crossing the line now. This is the kind of frantic point where everybody's crossing the line. Orlemans goes P8. Lucchese goes third. Jumps both Chioka and Ottens to put himself onto row number 2, but still more drivers yet to come across the line. The likes of Hussein Sarkadestalori goes P4. We're looking at Sebastian Bonnet as well, as Dimitrov goes 5th. Where can Bonnet put himself? I think these guys will only get another one more go at it, so they've got to get the lap times on the board now. Ostick's 4th, Curler's 7th. A lot of improvements towards the end of the session. This could really change in the final runs.
Yeah, lots and lots happening. Mike Murphy's about to cross the line. What will be his final lap time as well? Justin Rems had a purple lap there in 8.2. He's extended that margin to Humphrey now by over 0.3 of a second, so he's brought the pace with him tonight for sure. Robin Aston, Matt Stace, Danny Weir and James Howarth, the only drivers yet to finish the session, the only 4 that are still on flying laps. Let's see if Robin Aston can improve at the moment in P11 down in the Premier class, and he's got quite a margin to overcome if he's going to get ahead of Henry Coolan, 0.4 behind at the moment. But if he can find half a second, he could all of a sudden find himself inside the top 6. Let's see if that's possible for him. He's got 2 personal best sectors in Sector 3 and Sector 5. Let's see what his Sector 6 is. An improvement once again, so Robin could be on for something here. I hope for his sake that he gets at least 1 position out of this improved lap. Let's see as the Suma GB2 Mercedes heads around the final corner. It'll be one of the final drivers to do so. Let's watch and see.
Yeah.
No. An improved lap, but not an improved position.
Not at a big improvement. I mean, Rob Mackay is still right on the back of him as well. So clearly very tight in that Premier class. I mean, you can look at some of the gaps as well. We're talking hundredths of a second, only a couple of tenths. Right the way down the field, so incredibly close. Matt Stace, one of the last drivers, I think, to be setting there. We'll be stopping across the line. That is not going to be an improvement. A 2:15.7 will be that. But I mean, yeah, you can see the times there. Particularly at the front of the Evo class, top 5, 2.5 tenths. In the Premier class, from Hussein Sakradesla down to Robin Aston's all of 3 tenths. And again, in the Elite class, you've got between Ben Chalcraft and Jay Cooley. Granted, that's only about 4 or 5 positions, but it's a tenth of a second. There's some really close times, and this could be leading to some really close racing as we get towards the green. But it's nice to know that we're going to have, I was just trying to say, as you change it over there, the top 8 are all the Elite drivers, but Mike Murphy got a couple of cars between himself and the rest of his pack. Evo, a little bit further down than we've used to be seeing them. We've seen a couple of drivers pop themselves up inside the top 15, but they are going to be almost separate throughout the race in the leading battles, it seems.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that, as you said, Evo slightly lower than what we're used to seeing. Yannis Olbert, in the end, didn't actually set a lap time, so he and Francois will be toward the back of the grid. But ahead of that, let's take a look at how they're going to stack up ahead of the opening sprint race tonight. So it's Justin Rem who takes the lead, and he starts on the front row of the grid alongside William Humphrey for Dennett Racing, the two championship protagonists keeping up with each other. Let's see if they can do that throughout the race. Luke Lucchese and Jeremy Chioka will share the second row of the grid ahead of Ryan Ottens and Ben Chalcraft, the top 6. Chaz Draycott up there as well alongside his Spontex CDM teammate, so that's good for them. And Jeremy Allemans in P8. Mike Murphy on the pole position for the Premier class ahead of Christopher Radloff. The top 10, it's Jay Corley, Stephen Donnelly, Cass Brinkhausen, Josh Ostick and Pierre Borres, the top 15, with Sebastian Bonnet, Thomas Sabor and Hussein Sarakadesla, the top 18. Maxime Dimitrov and Dennis Köhler ahead of Martin Kenyon, and then the pole man in the Evo, Luis Nevea, ahead of Rob Pickle, Steve Rubino, Henry Coulin, Matthew Noel, Robin Aston, John Ludbrook, the top 28, ahead of Charlie Stothard, Rob Mackay, the top 30, Andrew Fellows, Matt Stace, Ashley Brooks, Danny Weir and James Howarth, the last of the qualifiers, ahead of the elite driver Yannis Olbert and the Qualiband Evo Championship leader Francois Brandet. It'll be interesting to see how those two particularly get on in this opening phase. So not long to go then until we get underway, and it'll be Justin Rame who will lead us off the line for the opening lap. We have the lights. It's a decent dash down toward the medium speed corner at turn 1. It should be okay for these guys to flow on. It looks like a bit of a slow start there by William Humphrey, who's already got Luke Lucchese alongside him for company. And let's see, as these guys now barrel down toward turn 1, who's going to get the advantage. A little bit of a switch from position there by Draycott. Radloff's down 1 position in the middle of the pack, but Justin leads Humphrey, who's kind of clawed back a little bit of that margin actually, and it looks as though everyone once again has got through at the back of the field, so that's good news. William Humphrey's actually taking the lead of the race. We've missed that. We'll have to catch that in a moment. But Humphrey leads Rame, leads Lucchese, and Ryan Ottens has swapped positions with Jeremy Chioka in the top 5.
Yeah, incredibly important stuff for William Humphrey to get himself back into the lead. I say back into the lead of the race, as we're seeing some lights flashing as well from a couple of the Spontex cars as they make their way down in towards their hairpin. Rame has no answer to William Humphrey this time around, but a little bit of side-by-side action. That was Jay Cooley to the inside. Oh, a little bit of wheel banging. Rob Pickle is watching all of that. Dennis Köhler almost being sent on by the number 14. We run our way down in towards this difficult Cunningham corner. It's going to be Justin Rame around the outside. Can he hook it around there? We don't often see a move completed, and in the end William Humphrey defending very nicely indeed, and Justin Rame with nowhere to go. Maybe a send incoming at Tower Turn, but these two are getting themselves a little bit further away from the rest. Lucchese is trying to stick with them, but for the time being the top 3 are definitely clear of our P4 man.
Yeah, we've got Steve Rubino who's taking the lead at the front of the Evo class, and there's a spinning Henry Coulin there. He's off and he is out in the barrier. That orange McLaren, very striking really, has to sit as these two come through. But that is Steve Rubino ahead of Andrew Fellows and Matthew Noel. Let's bring up the timing tower and take a look at how things stand after the opening lap, and we can also bring up the positions so you guys can understand exactly who the big gainers and who the big losers are. Francois Brandet, look at that, already up into P5, started at the back of the grid. He's got himself up from P37 up to P28 overall, and I think that's actually just the 5 positions in class. He's gained 9 positions overall, including a handful of those Evo drivers. Janus Olber has gained 10 as well, and those two are the biggest gainers. We've got cars side by side here. That's Thomas Saborin around the outside of Martin Kenyon through Sunset Bend. He gets that position done nicely, and now they cross over onto the second lap.
They do. It's worth noting as well with the position changes that Luis Nevaeh obviously got pole in the Evo class all the way down to the back of the field. So an awful start for the number 17 driver as they work their way through turn 1 now with Martin Kenyon. Oh, getting close on the exit in this battle for P5 in class. Huss is trying to defend to the inside line, but he will stay exactly where he is. Kool-Aid, though, we've seen him going for a couple of outside line moves. He's now fighting with Christopher Radloff over P10 in the class, but wouldn't mind getting an extra couple of spots just to try and consolidate the position that he's in. Of course, no reverse grid between race 1 and race 2. Where you finish is where you start. So as the drivers know that there is no trade-off for not getting any positions.
Yeah, we've got Mr. Draycott, who's right behind his teammate. He's with us tonight. We can see how he is getting on, and he's got a bit of bother in behind. He's got Jeremy Allemans currently the top 9, all on track in the elite class. So lots and lots of opportunities here for these guys, and I wonder what's going through the minds of Draycott and Chelcraft as they battle ahead. I'm not sure they'll be talking too much strategy just yet. Just got to survive in these opening few laps. And there's a spin ahead. Who's that? It's William Humphrey. He's off again.
No! That's awful for the championship, isn't it? I mean, William Humphrey, can he get it back on the circuit? Yes, he can. But he's tumbling down the order, and this is almost handing a fantastic advantage in the championship on a silver platter to Justin Rame. He comes into this race, of course, Rame 24 points ahead. Was there contact between the two? Let's see as they come through Tower Turn. There was, and Justin Rame has tapped around William Humphrey. And I don't think, that really does spice things up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's a shame. Will got tagged in a similar fashion last week at the Red Bull Ring. And it's been, it's just a slight impatience there by Justin, who has driven through the back of his competitor, which is not what you like to see. Things happen. But that is the two championship leaders coming together, and Humphrey, once again, shades of last week's got a lot of work to do if he's going to try and catch up. Currently in P20 overall, P13 in class, and he's lost out another position there behind Steve Rubino, who leads the way in the Evo class. He's on the outside line as well, Humphrey, so he's going to have to try and, there we go, Steve lets him by and lets him take the normal line. Justin under pressure from Lucchese, Ottens and Chioka. That's really invited those guys back into the scene. And we've got a nice cluster actually. P9, 10, 11 is the top 3 in the Premier class, so they're sticking together as well, which is always good to see.
Quick update on how that would change the championship in the elite class. If this finished as it was, with Rame winning and Humphrey down in 13th, the championship advantage would jump out to 63 for Justin Rame, and Justin Rame would have the starting advantage for race 2 with the double points as well. So an incredible, advantage Justin Rame would have, all from the tap that he gave William Humphrey down at Tower Turn. So I don't think Humphrey's going to be overly pleased at all, but he's looking like he's trying to make moves. Sebastian Bonnet is his latest victim, and Humphrey knows he has to gain as many positions as he can, otherwise this really is going to go out of his hands very quickly indeed.
Yeah, you're totally right there. Let's see what's going on. It's still this battle. Actually, we'd ride on with Humphrey again, but I was more looking at the closest battle that we have on the track at the moment. Josh Ostick, here's one. He's right behind. He's got company of Jay Coley, the elite driver. He will not want to be mincing, battling against an elite driver when he can see Donnelly, the two teammates, isn't it? Donnelly and Murphy getting away ahead. Coley is going to put himself alongside. Looks to go the long way around the outside. Can't get the grip on that line, but he might have got the run. And let's see, as these guys head through Sunset Bend, is this going to be something that Coley can do? Is he going to look to the inside? Yes, he is. It looks like he's got the run. And let's watch on as these guys, we haven't seen anybody going side by side through Sunset Bend yet. Is he going to dive up the inside? Takes the narrower line, which is quite, it's okay through that corner. There's plenty of space for these guys to get through. And on that occasion, Jay makes the most of it and gets up. That's now him in P11 overall and P9 in class.
Yeah, let's see, as they work their way down in towards turn number 1, once again, this is really where we're going to have to be seeing moves in the likes of Jay Cooley if he wants to get himself into a more comfortable position in that yellow and green machine. You've got Radov just in behind, but then you've got even more hungry drivers not too far back. There's William Humphrey in the background, just going wide off the circuit, trying to gain another position, and William Humphrey's trying to get past Thomas Sabor, and this is just in behind with Saraka Dessler trying to find a way through on Martin Kenny. Nothing happening there, and just in the foreground again, Humphrey trying different lines to try and get an exit. You'd say that he's going to go for a centre the inside at the hairpin as they get out onto this little back straight. There goes Humphrey up into P11, and now a little bit of free air to work into to try and gain more positions in the final 7.5 minutes of this race.
I wanted to go back at least to give Will something. It's been a disastrous few laps, but let's see how he got that move done right at the start of the race. Was it a mistake by Justin, or was it a lovely move up the inside? Yes, it was. Nice and late on the brakes. Didn't really give Justin a chance to even see him coming. He darted out from behind him. Before he knew it, he was back in front of him, and that is how the lead was taken. I bet in a way Will wishes that he hadn't done it so soon, otherwise he wouldn't have been spun round not too long later. There was also an incident toward the back between Robin Aston and Rob Mackay. Let's see what happened there. A bit of a bunch up. Just a small bit of contact there, not much giving, nobody. Oh, that's the one that we were waiting for. That's Mackay, who ran out of room and has tagged Aston and spun him round there.
Yeah, impossible place, I think, to be in through there. If you're going 3 wide, then if you're the driver in the middle, you're just trying to pick a way through. Driver on the inside, outside, can't really do too much there. But yeah, unfortunate scenario. This happened to Sebastian Bonnet as well. Ooh, hitting his rival, but there's nothing that Bonnet could do. Let's see it again. Running down in towards the hairpin. You're just thinking, I'll pick my brake and then I'll turn in and I'll be able to get out of the corner. But when you get to this point, there is no avoiding that collision. And unfortunate for Bonnet.
Yeah, that's just the worst timing there to see him just spinning as soon as you turn in. Nothing you can do at that point. And unfortunately, Sebastian was caught up with something else here. Tries to send it up the inside. I'm not sure who that would have been there. But he tried to send it up the inside at turn 16. Didn't work. Got turned in on, sadly.
Yeah, and it's just the dangers of the circuit, really, with the differing lines that you have. You can try and do something, again, like you can try and go for an inside there, but then the driver on the outside, there's almost nothing they can do to change their line. They've hung out so far wide, they're risking running off the circuit. This is the battle again. Martin Kenyon and Saraka Dessler can't leave each other alone. It is just, and they're climbing all over each other for V4 at the moment in class, and Kenyon will hold that for the time being. Quick little note on Mike Murphy leading the race. It means that if he was to stay where he is and Stephen Donnelly was to stay exactly where he is, they would go into race number 2 with Mike Murphy holding a 193-point advantage, meaning that any top 6 result would see him winning the championship.
Lots on offer. There's Dennis Curler up the inside of Andrew Fellows, who doesn't quite fancy that one. He goes around the outside and says, no thank you, I'm going to hold on to that position. The 2 Mercedes doing battle. It was a good move up the inside, but a great defence around the outside by Mr. Fellows, who does hang on to that position. It's out of class as well, so it's P4 for it will be Fellows, P8 for Curler, and then Andrew will want to do that because he knows that Francois is the next man behind. As we said, up 11 places at the start and up 5 places in class up to P5. Let's ride on board for a little while with Francois as he chases after the 2 Mercedes, and he'll be aware that he's got quite a few penalty points in the last few races. Doesn't want to give away that margin, which I'm sure he won't, but he knows that he just has to have some decent race finishes tonight, and with there being no reverse grid in this format tonight, Francois knows where he finishes will be where he starts, and he can try and continue this throughout the rest of the session. Maybe find himself over the long run right toward the front of the class.
Yeah, and let's see if he can keep up this kind of good momentum that he's built up so far in this race. But it's just a case of getting yourself over the line. Brande knows exactly what he needs to be doing. There's a problem for Ottens as Ottens comes down pit lane. Is that a drive-through penalty for the Canadian GT4? Maybe. But he's in the pit lane regardless. Back on Brande, though, of course, he knows exactly what he needs to do. Andrew Fellows is the driver directly in front of him. Or but one, and he's the one who is racing for the championship for. So if he's only losing a couple of points, it's looking very good for Francois. It makes that requirement decrease from 100 points. It's going to be more like 60 for race number 2 at this rate, so looking pretty good. I was also wrong on my calculations with Mike Murphy. If it was to stay as it is, all Mike Murphy would need to do is actually finish the race in race number 2, and he'd be the champion.
Wow. Well, there you go. So you'll keep me right on that, I'm sure. I'm looking up and down. We've got some good moves up here between Draycott, and that's Casper Inkhausen in behind the two Spontex cars, putting Chaz under a little bit of pressure. Chaz does move over to the middle of the circuit. Kaz is going to go for it, though. Up the inside, just about backs out before they reach the right-hander. The two Spontex Hedgehogs still going strong, riding on together. The gap nearly 4 seconds to Jeremy Chioka in the top 3. So at the moment, a P4 and a P5 is probably the best that these two can hope for. With just 2.5 minutes to go in this opening sprint, it's flown by, but that's going to set us up nicely for the longer of the two feature races. And some news from the chat. Mr. Bostock reminds us that Justin is only 2 points away from a quali ban. So theoretically, if that was to get reported, he would be starting the final round right at the back of the grid, as my assumption.
The only issue with that is that if Justin Rome can gain enough points, depending on how much William Humphrey can do to this gap, I mean, he's still down in P10. If he was to finish in 10th, albeit I know he's going to be quick, he's going to be gaining in both races, but just for the sake of argument, if he was to finish in P10 in both races, then the championship margin at the end of the day would be 120 points and Justin Rome's the champion. So, William Humphrey still has some work to do to keep the championship alive. Justin Rome wouldn't mind trying to win this race, complete winning this race, and then push forward in race number 2 from the starting position that he will have, which will be pole at this rate. So it's not looking good for William Humphrey, but he just has to do everything he can to gain these positions back. Of course, double points in race number 2 makes it all the more important to get every single spot past the likes of Radloff, Corley and Allemans, who are not in that kind of championship battle.
Yeah, a very level-headed guy as well. I'm sure he'll be frustrated, but he won't be letting himself, get too heated. The red mist won't be there. He'll just be keeping his composure, I'm sure, and driving his usual style. And let's see, obviously they both want to win the championship. Only one of them can. But Will's definitely had some unlucky behaviour as these guys are going 2 by 2 here into the hairpin. And as the Spontex, it looked like one of them was going to get spun around there. Cass just took to the grass ever so slightly and now sweeps through turn 8 and 9. Is Cass going to get 2 and 1 here? He's got Draycott already. It looks as though he's got some clean air in front of him to put a mount on Mr. Chalcraft. Let's see as they head around the outside there. We'll watch on from this angle to see exactly what's going on. Charlie Stothard, he's gone. He's in the pit lane. His race is over, and we are on the final laps. Let's keep an eye. Justin Rem currently leads Luke Lucchese and Chioka. Big gaps at the front, over a second between each of them. At the moment, though, the closest battle here. Chaz Draycott's had an issue. He's dropped down many places just there. He was 2 cars ahead at the start of this lap, and now he finds himself behind the Premier leader of Murphy, who's put a car in between he and Donnelly. And William Humphrey here up the inside. Contact between the two Mercedes. He's going to have another go down towards Sunset Bend. He's going to stay on the inside line. Room has been given by Radloff around the outside. Let's see what Will can do as he heads down towards Sunset. But Justin Rame, controversially, after sort of moving his teammate out the way, we could say, does come across the line in the sprint and will start on the front row of the grid for the 45-minute feature ahead of Luke Lucchese and Jeremy Chioka. A good result for the pair of those. Cass Brinkhausen will be the next across the line. A great final lap for him ahead of Chalcraft, Allemans and Drake at the top 7 in the elite. There's Mike Murphy winning in the Premier Division ahead of his teammate Stephen Donnelly. And we'll soon see Josh Ostick. There he is, the top 3 in the Premier class. Steve Rubino next across the line in that melee of cars there. He wins in the Evo class ahead of Matthew Noel and then John Ludbrook, who we see now the top 3. Francois Brandet actually made it up into the top 4 and will start in P24 overall and P4 in class ahead of what is our 45-minute feature race.
Yeah, looking forward to this feature race. I don't think William Humphrey's looking forward to it too much. He knows he has to gain time and positions. He's going to be starting race number 2 a fair ways back in the championship. I think in the end it's going to be 53 points back in the championship, and that is a lot of ground to make up in, albeit 45 minutes worth of racing, but 3 races to do so, and Justin Rame looks pretty quick.
He does. He really, really does. It was actually an incident for Ryan Ottens toward the end of that race that saw him go into the pit lane. I see he crashed on the 7th lap. So, damage for him. And in the end, where did he finish? I don't see him on the timing tower. I do think he came back out of the pit lane. Yes, he did. He finished in P25 overall, P13 in class. So unfortunate for Ryan there, who was doing quite well at the start of the race. And we've got the two final drivers of Charlie Stothard and Pierre Bourdes about to cross the line. And then we can run you through the finishing order of that opening sprint.
Yeah, championship wise, in a couple of the other classes, that's what I was looking for, classes, up widening a little bit in the Premier class, closing the slightest bit in the Evo, but not really enough, I think, to cause Francois Brandet too much worry. And Andrew Fellows is still going to have to make a big gain in race number 2 to avoid Francois winning it tonight.
Absolutely right. And as we said, that 105-point gap was all Francois needed. He'll have brought out some of that, but let's see how this 100-point feature race goes. At the front then of the grid and at the front of the elite standings, it's Justin Rame who wins once again for Grid & Go Esports ahead of Luke Lucchesi, the RDSA esports driver who has had quite a few P2s, yet to stand on the top step on a Monday night, but he gets himself his best race finish again in P2 ahead of Jeremy Chioka, who's had a fine end to the season, getting himself on the podium more often than I think even he would have expected coming into this championship. Cas Brinkhausen in P4 ahead of Ben Chalcraft, the top 5. Jeremy Orlemans in P6 and Chaz Drake an unfortunate end to the race there, as we saw, losing a handful of positions on the final lap. He's in P7 ahead of Jay Corley, who returns with us tonight in P8. Then it's William Humphrey, who was right up there challenging Justin for the race lead before it all came undone. He ended up in P9 with no time to recover. Let's see what he can do in this longer 45-minute stint. Chris Radloff rounds off the top 10 ahead of Thomas Saborin and Yanis Olber in P12, Ryan Ottens and Sebastian Bonnet, with all of the elite drivers classifying in that race, all finishing on the lead lap.
Yeah, it was, I think the first time I've seen I've just given out a 9 point in quite a long time, and that's for Sebastian Bonnet finishing P14, so nice to see some good numbers. Mike Murphy, of course, winning again in that Premier class. He has really been the class of the field there. He won from Stephen Donnelly and Josh Ostix, who was at second and third. Ostix, of course, missed the opening couple of rounds, but he really has come back into the championship with a flourish. Great run of podiums for him, and another P3 once again. Kenyon in fourth, ahead of Sarah Gadesler in fifth. They were fighting all the way towards the end. Dimitrov and Rob Pickle, barely anything to split them in sixth and seventh, with Dennis Curler, Matt Stace and Rob Mackay inside the top 10. Kulan and Perez will pick up the points for 11th and 12th, but sadly for Robin Aston, he won't see any points. He was 6 laps down, so we'll go down to DNF in that one.
And finally then, the smallest class that we have on the grid. Congratulations to Steve Rubino, who crosses the line on home soil. We alluded to that earlier, and the American crosses in front. The number 34 machine gets maximum points in the opening round. Ahead of Matthew Noel, the Canadian, so good for those guys on the other side of the Atlantic. And then there's John Ludbrook back here, the Englishman for Camé GP2, rounding off the podium there. Francois Brandet, the other European that we have in this class for DXT Emerald, came from the back of the grid up to P4 ahead of his sister team, Danny Weir, James Howarth, Andrew Fellows and Ashley Brooks, the top 8, with Luis Nevea, who started on pole actually, or right up there towards pole. He must have had an incident at some point in that race to finish in P9, ahead of Charlie Stothard in P10. Once again, all drivers classifying in that race, with Charlie just slightly off the pace, but still on the lead lap. So then,
interesting, really, just to see how the drivers. Oh, I was going to say, interesting to see how some of those drivers have been able to work their way up in the championship. I mean, a couple of those guys who've been able to come back, the likes of Steve Rubino, have almost had quite a consistent season, but that's Steve's first win and his first podium since Manny Core. So it's nice to see a couple of other drivers getting their names in there towards the end of the season.
Yeah, it totally is, actually, and it's good when you get a mix. Sometimes the drivers who aren't involved in anything at the end of the season tend to stop showing up, really, which is always good to see when the guys keep it going, even if they're not fighting for anything. You know, that's what racing's all about. Still show up and do what you can. I'm glad Jay's with us again tonight, because he's usually the one who goes out during this warm-up, and when he's not here, it's a bit of an empty session. So Jay in the Aston Martin, heading around now, getting in a couple of laps, 45 seconds to go before we can run you through that final grid ahead of our 45-minute feature race. Maximum points on offer in that one. 100 points will go to the race winner. And again, I'll rely on our well-informed Mr. Dara over here to give us the latest standings, see if anybody can convert a championship in the next 45 minutes.
Yes, I'm just finishing up doing the Evo, and the lead is 155 for Francois Brandet, which means that I think anything, so a P8 or better for Francois Brandet in a 10-car field will be good enough for him to win the championship. In the Premier class, Mike Murphy's win means that all he has to do is finish the race, and he's the champion. And it gets a little bit more complicated in Elite, but I will work those permutations out.
Very good. So that seems like we're next to guaranteed to have at least one. Let's say if Mike can finish the race. I wonder if he's aware of that. I'm sure he is. Again, remember we have a one fast repair on option. And then even so, you can still take some time to fix up your car as long as you're not too far away from the race leader come the checkered flag. There is still an option to classify a few laps off the race finish, especially in a race like this where we have more laps than usual. So then, let's quickly run through the grid ahead of this feature before we get underway, although I might run out of time. So Justin Rem once again at the front row, this time sharing it ahead of Luke Lucchese. Jeremy Chioka and Cass Brinkhauser next, with Ben Chalcraft and Jeremy Alderman's the top 6. Chaz Draycott ahead of Mike Murphy, the man at the front row of the Premier class, ahead of Stephen Donnelly and Jay Corley, the top 10. William Humphrey down there in P11 ahead of Radloff, Ostick, Saborin and Kenny in the top 15. Sarika Desler, Steve Rubino, Yanis Olberg gets himself up into the top 18 ahead of Dimitrov and Rob Pickle. Matthew Noel, John Ludbrook, Curler, Brandet, Otten's the top 25 ahead of Weir, Howarth, Stace, Mackay, Bonnie the top 30. We have lights, so I'm going to cut away from this and hand it over to you, Dara.
Yeah, this could be a championship winning day for a couple of drivers, but can Justin Rame try and eke himself further away in that championship? Well, he's got 45 minutes to do so, and we're racing here. Lucchese knows that he has to get a good launch to try and challenge Justin Rame, but Rame looks like he's going to have enough to cover the line into turn number 1. Bit of a battle in behind, though, as they duck and dive their way towards this tight opening corner. Turn 1 flows through, get as close to the wall as you dare, and they're 2 by 2 by 2. Noah's Ark formation in behind as they all run their way out of the corner. Look like William Humphrey was under a little bit of pressure as we look from a sky cam. Bad start in the back from a couple of our drivers, but mostly everybody getting themselves through and into turn 2. Oh, it's been for one of the DXT cars. Oh, that can't be our championship leader, surely, in the 130 Premier class. We'll have to see on that one. But as we go through, it's been a really good start for the likes of William Humphrey, back up into P6. Not good, though, for the likes of Chaz Draycott and Radloff. They're already out of the race.
It was Stephen Donnelly who we saw in the McLaren, so not the championship leader. Mike Murphy still leads at the front of the Premier class, but he's got Josh Ostick for company in behind. Disastrous start there. Thomas Saborin, he looks like he's round. Yes, he's in the wall. That's rear damage at the exit of 7 through 8. And is he going to rejoin there? The Mercedes of Fellows has to just navigate there, slowly creeping back around. And this pack is the biggest at the moment. But at the front, Rem still leads, and he's got a little nice gap considering ahead of Luke Lucchese and Jeremy Chioka. Rob Pickle going side by side around side Yanis Olber and Hussein Sarika Desler there. Let's see as these guys get on the stoppers who's going to come out in front. That's Hussein as they head toward the final sector of the lap now. Not too many incidents to report. Matthew Noel and Stephen Donnelly, Rob Mackay and Robin Aston have come together again. I'm going to cut back to this one now while we have a chance. Those two got caught up with each other in the opening round, and if they come together again, oh, that's a returning Spontex car. Oh dear, that's, oh wow, we missed that somehow. That's a huge collision at the exit of turn 1. I must say, whoever that Spontex car was coming back across the circuit didn't do anybody any favours in holding the brakes there. Let's watch this one more time. We can see the Spontex car just about to appear in the picture. Oh, we missed it actually toward the front, and it's just a little bit of rear contact. How many is that? Probably the best part of 6 or 8 cars involved and off the circuit. The guys at the back having to come to a full stop in order to get through that crash.
I fear it was Chaz Draycott. Of course, Chaz looking like he's out of the race already, so likely to be him. Teammate Ben Chalcraft up in P6, so yeah, I think it could have been Chaz Draycott in the 220. It's unfortunate for him, and he's unlikely to be picking up many points tonight. Of course, tonight's the last chance to drop any points in a drop round. Of course, next week at Zolder, final round, you can't drop anything, so everything will count. But really poor start from a couple of drivers. I think we've already got 3, 4, 5, could even have 6 out after the opening couple of minutes. We didn't even have that in the 15-minute sprint.
Yeah, and I'm looking now. as if by magic, Francois Brandet is back at the top of the Evo standings. He must have gained something from that issue that we just watched, because all of a sudden he's right back in, and that will be him probably on for the championship if things stay as they are. With Andrew Fellows down in P8, it's going to be quite a bit for him to have to overcome.
It is, and Andrew Fellows knows that he has to win the race. Brandet, with the fact that Matthew Noel, I don't think is actually finishing this race, only really needs one more driver to not finish, and then he can spin and go as slowly as he wants to. As long as he stays within the lap counter, then he will find himself as a champion already. Mike Murphy, of course, winning this race, looking to extend his championship advantage to over 200 points with only 100 points remaining. Which just shows how much of a swing you can get in these 100-point races. He's 193 points ahead, but he may, and he's not won the championship yet, but by the end of the race, he may have double the necessary points that he needs. Oh, with only one round to go, that got a little bit tight between Kenyon and Aston. Kenyon with a lot more on the exit of Tower Turn than we saw from Robin Aston, and Kenyon nearly surprised himself, got out of the way, but got himself up into P number 9.
Yeah, got the move done very well there, did Martin. It kind of looked as though the car ahead was really slow on the exit. He's going to get another move done here, potentially. A little bit wobbly ahead. That's Luis Novea, who's behind Charlie Stothard, then Ashley Brooks. And Martin out of position somewhat. He's in P9 in the Premier class with the top 5 Evos ahead of him, and 3 of them in quick succession. The 2 Mercedes. Let's watch on as these 2 go through Sunset Bend. And where's the third car in all of this? Looks very slow, unfortunately, there by Luis Nevea, who's actually, no, I stand corrected. Slow on entry, but quick on the exit. And what a move that is ahead by Luis Nevea to take Charlie Stothard through Sunset Bend. That's exactly the kind of move that you want to make going through there. As we said earlier, differing lines. Some will go for the exit, some will go for the entry. And in that case, oh, never mind. And we watch Kenyon as he just heads on through there.
And don't forget that Luis Nevea, of course, got pole position in the Evo class, had an incident down at turn 1 on the opening race, so he's still trying to recover that position. So we'll have to see if he can try and get himself back to the front. James Hayworth, of course, fighting this one out now with Charlie Stothard, who is going backwards, of course, was making some very aggressive moves at the Red Bull Ring effectively as well at turn 3 and turn 4. I think it came his undoing at one point, though, so we'll have to see if he can try and keep up this momentum of some really quite good moves. He's going to get to the inside line at the hairpin, and I think he's going to get this one done. James Hayworth going to try and loop it around the outside in his BMW, but getting caught up a little bit off the exit. Here comes Danny Weir to try and take advantage, and Danny Weir does, and he's up into P6 now. Great little bit of opportunism there from Weir. Yeah,
gets ahead of his teammate Howarth, who may ask for that position to be given back potentially. Let's see as the next few laps unfold. Obviously Howarth doing well toward the front, and that's contact, and that's Danny round, and his teammate does just about avoid him. A slight clip there, and we catch that's Charlie, who's been spun around, and we can see Danny on the driver cams not best pleased with himself there, I do think. But yeah, it's him and Charlie in the wars. Kenyon has just got past Brooks as well, so it's been a great lap for him, but Ashley clearly not too happy. Let's see how he got that move done and see if Ashley's right to be a little bit aggrieved by that move here. We're starting very early, and Ashley's just got to slow down, so maybe that's just more of an apology than anything else, just to say I'm slow and just let me by. And Ashley rejoins the circuit. Kenyon picks up that position, and yeah, what a lap it's been for him.
Yeah, good lap so far, and it only might get a little bit better. It's going to get better, it seems, for Mike Murphy over the rest of the evening if he can keep hold of this race lead. Josh Ostick is just in behind, but he's got Jay Corley between himself and his nearest rival in the Premier class, trailing just behind the 208 of Ben Shalcraft as well. So the top 6 in this race are all elite drivers. Then we have a little bit of a mix of elite and Premier. There was Rob Pickle making a move, and Hussein Zarakadeslo trying to make his way through. Rob Pickle in that Dill light blue entry you can just see up in front, so Huss knows exactly where he needs to place his car to try and get himself up into the top 3, but this is what we saw just a minute ago. Pickle on the insides, he drifted out a little bit wide. It's Hussein drifted out a little bit wide. It's the latter, and Rob Pickle retakes that position, and that is why he's up into P3 in the class.
Yeah, great jousting up and down the grid at the moment. Pickle, Hussein, the closest battle that we've got upside the hairpin here. As Hussein up the inside is going to allow the room. Yes, he is. The 2 Porsches squirming through that little section there between 8 and 9. A lovely part of racetrack, and it's really inviting for those who get the exit out of the hairpin to really think, well, let's go side by side all the way through until this point here, turn 10. By this time, you're more likely to be back in single file, which these guys are. We've got Pickle ahead of Sarkadesla, ahead of Perez, the top 5, P3, P4, P5 in the Premier Division. Meanwhile, Mike Murphy, as we saw earlier, right at the front, P7 overall, P1 in class. He's got the likes of Jay Corley and Ben Chalcraft for company up there at the moment. Let's take a look at these guys, though. This is currently the battle for the podium in the Evo class, with Robin Aston, the lead Mercedes there. Ashley Brooks looking to get a move done, potentially up the inside here as they sweep through the left-handers. Let's keep an eye on this. Ashley will be thinking, let's get a move done, try and put myself in front of a... Oh, off the circuit there goes Ash. That may be a slowdown. Let's see what happens with Luis Nevea in behind. Doesn't look like a slowdown, actually, unless Ash is going to play this one strategically.
Yeah, I think they're going to stay where they are. Yeah, it looked like Ash was just trying to keep his way out of trouble, but either way, Luis Nevea will be looking to get a couple of moves done. Pierre Boresque has got some issues in the Premier class. I don't know if we're just about to reach that point on the circuit. I can see some smoke. I suppose we will. Luis Nevea getting a little bit closer through the final corner. Not quite close enough, but I think Pierre Boresque has actually got himself going once again. And let's see what happened. Does he go for the move in the 106? Inside line for him. He gets squeezed to the inside. There's a tap on the rear. And at that point, with that kind of momentum, you're going around. Oh, just a kiss of a wall. And that could have been a lot worse for the Frenchman. But down the inside, you can see how committed he had to be. I think some would say he should have backed out there, but he went for it regardless, and he suffered the consequences. Yeah,
you can see, I'm going to play this one more time. You can see there's a little jink of the steering as he fears that he's getting a little bit too close to that wall. Just opens it up there momentarily and then gets back on the right-hand lock. And at that point, he's probably not looking at the car ahead. Just drifts into the rear of Sarkadesla. And that's him into the wall. And not out of the race, actually. He's still going. Has he been into the pit lane? I'm not too sure. This car doesn't look too damaged, though. Managed to get himself going quick and proper. Meanwhile, back toward the front. This is the battle for P4 in the elite class. And good for William Humphrey. He can still see the lead cars ahead of him. So not all is lost with 35 minutes to go. As long as he can still see Justin Rem, that will give him some optimism. But he's got to get through Brinkhausen, Chioga and Lucchesi first, which is not an easy task at all. Ironically, 3 Mercedes sharing the circuit at the moment. Not something we've seen too often this season, and Will could be up with a move into Sunset Bend. Let's ride on and see if he can get that done now.
Yeah, needs every single point he can get. This would be for another 6 points to his tally, of course, with double points paying positions. Let's see, inside line, he's going to claim that corner, and there's nothing really that Cas Brinkhausen can do apart from just say, yeah, okay, William, you got the rows, and I'll try and follow you through if you make any other moves. But William Humphrey trying to make his way back towards the front, nearing the podium. Cas may try and fight this one back a little bit as they cross the start-finish line, but William Humphrey should control it. As it stands then now with Justin Rame in P1 and William Humphrey down in P4, the live championship difference between Rame and Humphrey is 81. And even if Rame has a qualifying ban, I think he'd only actually have to finish both of the races and he'd find himself champion with that kind of gap.
Yeah, it's bigger than it's been for many, many weeks. So let's see. Still a lot can happen, but at the moment, Justin not under too much pressure. The gap 1.2 seconds behind P2 and 1.3 all the same. Luis Nevea, he's crashed the... Oh no, he's not. He's on the pit lane. I thought that was the pit wall, but Luis Nevea has come into the pit lane. I wonder what that's about. Maybe he's had some damage. I don't see anything on the radar for that one though. That's Luis Nevea, who's had a night which started well, and it's slowly got worse and worse for him, sadly. Jay Corley still all over the back of Mike Murphy, and again, Mike doesn't want to do too much. He could win the championship in this race if he keeps it. There we go. That's exactly what I thought he should do. Let the faster guys through. Just defend. He's got Ostick behind him now, though. So we do now have a race on our hands in the Premier class. And let's ride on with Josh for a little while. See if he can pick off some bones of the Porsche ahead. Still so much time to do it, though.
There is, and we'll have to see if he almost realises that we've got that much time left and is a little bit more patient with moves, or whether he just wants to get these done as quickly as he possibly can to almost make the rest of the race a little bit easier for him. We'll wait and see. Still over half an hour to go. I think everybody who was involved in the incident off the line has been able to keep themselves relatively out of trouble. Chaz Graycott is still out on the circuit, and he's now less than a lap down on Sebastian Bonnet. So if he's able to finish the race, he would pick up points. For Sabourin and Radloff, though, they've been out of the race for a little while. I don't think they're going to be coming back anytime soon, and if they are, they're not going to be able to be close enough to pick up points. So sadly for Sabourin and Radloff, they have gone. But a quick note on Radloff that I wasn't able to mention between the races, that he's not been here much this season. This is only the second round he's attended, and he got 18 points in at the Hungaroring, where he attended round 3, and he's got 18 points tonight, and if he's retired that means it'll be 18 and 18, but he has not had the best of seasons so far and finds himself out of the race.
Yeah, lovely sweeping move that we see just now by Yannis Aubert on Josh Ostick. That's him up to P9 overall, P8 in class. Probably one of his best finishes of the season. Well, maybe not fully, but yeah, watching Aubert mincing it up at the top of the grid is something that we haven't seen for a little while, particularly not in this series. And here we can see at the top of our picture, it's Jay Corley, and he's having to force Chalcraft to defend. He actually decides to take the outside line, does Chalcraft, and not defend that position. However, he's still ahead. Good exit there out of the hairpin, but the Aston Martin just a nose or so in front by the time we get to this corner. Is he going to be there? He's still going to have the inside line, is Corley. And let's see how these two fare through the slow speed at 10. Corley does get himself up and ahead. That is him now into P6, overall P6 in class, with a 5.5 second gap behind Cass Brinkhausen now. So you can see those two going side by side ahead. It's actually a blue flag between Cass and I'm not sure who the blue flag is, but yeah, blue flag between either Sabourin or Noel, and I think that's I think that might be Noel. So not too much happening actually up and down the grid at the moment. This pack the closest that we have as we cross over the half an hour mark, and I've been reminded nicely that of course we have to take fuel in this race, so we'll be seeing those guys coming in to make their stops, which could throw a spanner in the works. Occasionally we've seen that happen now and again throughout the season, when a couple of drivers seem to be able to shave off a few seconds from their race time, which can sometimes gain them a few positions.
Yeah, you're always looking for that extra little advantage, aren't you? Especially in races like this. You know, we came off the back of having 3 20-minute races last week at the Red Bull Ring, and we've just had a 15-minute race to start off the evening here. Getting in a 45-minute race, it really changes the picture, changes how drivers have to approach this race, and Aubert is approaching this one with a little bit of calm, but still enough aggression to make a move like that to the inside of Ben Chalcraft for P7. Of course, Yannis Aubert, still this season, has not had a great season. Yes, he's not been here every single week, but this is the 7th week, or the 6th week out of 9 that he has been here, and he still has only gained 97 points, including the opening race of the evening. So he's just not had a good season all season long. Humphrey's had a good season. It's not gone well for him tonight, but he's up into P3 and making the moves he needs to. That championship advantage now for Rain comes down by another 8 with that move.
Yeah, he's got Maxim Dimitrov as the next car under blue flags. Is he fighting back? No, he's just got ahead of Chioka. He's now got a 3.8 second difference, and he'll hope that this Maxim gets himself out the way and lets Will carry on, which is exactly what he does. 3 Mercedes in shot, and Will takes the lead ahead of the pair of them, and now he's got clean air ahead to set after Luke Lucchese. Let's see, can he see them? Yes, he can, just in the distance. That's got to be his motivation for the next 28 minutes. See how much closer he can get. Last lap, however, he was 2 tenths slower. No, he wasn't. Sorry, that's a different... Yes, he was actually. Still 2 tenths slower. The best lap and the last lap, both 2 tenths off the pace of both Justin, and actually half a second away from Lucchese. So as things stand, Lucchese is actually the fastest man on track. So he will be fancying his time. Is this actually going to be his time to win a race on a Monday? That will be something to get done before the end of the season. So fingers crossed that Luke can actually make that happen, because we've been egging him on for, God, months since the summer, if not before. It's become a little bit of a thing for me, hoping that he gets it done. Yet to do it though, this could be his opportunity.
6th place is for Luke Lucchese so far this season. Two podiums as well in 3rd to go along with it. So it has been a case of so near but so far for him so far this season. But he is right on the back of Justin Rame. The problem for Luke is that we've also got William Humphrey, who's gaining up towards the back of these two, and he is on a mission. So still 27 minutes to go. A lot can happen, but Luke has got to get that extra advantage. He has just been so close this season. He will consolidate P3 in the championship. There's no doubt about that. With a result here tonight, he could even get as close to William Humphrey as William Humphrey is to Justin Rame. So yeah, it's really been just so close but so far for Luke Lucchese, but he has been the best of the rest. Outside the top two, he has always been right there to pick up the pieces, and he's doing that tonight because with William Humphrey not quite being up the front, Lucchese is the one putting the pressure on Justin Rame for that race win.
So here are the second handful of cars exiting the pit lane. We've got Jeremy Allemans and Ryan Ottens who've just come out of the pits. We've had Donnelly, Stothard, Draycott, Nevea and Dimitrov who've already been in the pit lane. So let's see how those guys get on in battling, in some clean air, I was going to say. An early pit stop. Ottens might have found himself a nice little pocket here. Yes, he has. Free air in front and behind. He's got a 5-second gap ahead and a 20-second gap behind. So this is his opportunity to punch in the quick lap times. And with Lucchese being within a second here, it'll be interesting if he decides to stay in the slipstream of Rame, see if he can be effective. The two Porsches obviously will be similarly matched around a circuit like this, and one of them could try to capitalise, and we've just seen Humphrey there sneaking back into shot. 4.5 seconds the margin. That's gone up ever so slightly. Let's see how that unfolds over the next 5 or so laps and see if we're going to have a little finale toward the end of the race. Fingers crossed these two stay with one another. It would be nice to see them pitting at the same time even, just to see if one of them can do the jump in the pit lane. But we've seen already the races where we've had a feature, thinking back to the Hungaroring for instance, it was an opportunity for Justin to gain 5 seconds over Humphrey in the pit lane alone. Let's see if we can do that again, this time between Lucchese and Rame.
Yeah, we'll have to see if the fortunes change. Of course, adding in the pit stop makes it a little bit more interesting. Adds a little bit of a dynamic that we don't see in other races. A strategy element that can challenge the drivers, can give them an opportunity to try and work their way into a position where they can try and do something on the strategy without necessarily having to make the moves on the circuit. And I think we've done quite well at the circuits that we've had this longer race at. The Hungaroring, Laguna Seca, Sebring. They're not the easiest circuits to overtake. Sebring probably the easiest of the three, and all no Martin Kenyon having to reverse back into his pit box. That's another element of these pit stops. Little mistakes can be made. You can lose with a few seconds. But at circuits where overtaking is a little bit more difficult than the likes of the Red Bull Ring, the likes of the Hockenheim Ring, it kind of enables us to see a little bit more into the minds of the drivers, see what they're trying to think and in terms of the strategy. And it can really make a race a little bit more complicated for drivers, particularly in this kind of mid-pack, who are fighting quite hard over some big points in class, but they're also fighting with maybe some lower elite drivers and some higher Evo drivers. So it really does add a little an interesting element, and I quite enjoy seeing a pit stop, but I also enjoy seeing the fast races. So, you know, a win-win generally, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking now at the times that we have for the stationary stops. Actually, 5-second difference between the fastest and the current longest pit stop. So it's Ryan Ottens, no, it's not, sorry, it's Matt Stace in the Porsche who did a 17-second pit stop, and then Charlie Stothard in the Mercedes who got himself a 22-second pit stop. So 5 seconds the difference already. It would be interesting to see how the guys fare. Obviously different cars requiring different levels of fuel. Clearly at the moment the Porsche guzzling a little bit more than the others, and the Porsche, sorry, did I say that? The Mercedes guzzling a little bit more than the others, and the Porsche doing well on the fuel as it stands. Let's see if anyone can go quicker than 17 seconds, still with best part of 90% of the grid left to make that stop. Lucchese has set his personal best lap time just on the previous lap in his hot pursuit of Justin Rame. I think in the next couple of laps we're going to see a move for the lead of the race here.
I think Luke's going to go for it. I don't know whether it's going to be able to come off. I mean, we've seen Justin Rame defend really well, but Luke's surely going to go for it somewhere. He can't sit this close behind for so long and not be able to go for it at some point. He's been able to save a little bit more fuel as well, sitting where he is compared to Justin Rame, so that might come into consideration to the end of this one, but still a long way to go. Still halfway through this race, or just about to get halfway through this race, so a very long way for us still to be running into this evening scene here at Sebring. But Lucchese trying everything surely to get through up into P1. Humphrey, he's not doing exactly what I expected him to do. I thought he'd gain up to the back of these two, but he's dropped a couple of tenths, well, about 8 tenths over the last 5-6 minutes or so. So Raymond Lucchese doing a very good job. Humphrey maybe just not able to get quite close enough to make anything work to get higher than P3.
We've got 3 DXT machines doing battle at the moment. It's James Howarth leads Danny Weir, leads Rob Mackay. And we can see Rob tonight back with us, not quite in the suit and tie that we saw him in around Portimao. Just the white tee for Mr. Mackay tonight, but he's got his 2 teammates ahead, the lovely chrome liveries that we see between the purple and the cyan. A nice looking livery, and let's see how these 3 get on. Currently, it's Mackay down there in P9 in class, but the top 5 in the Evo doing well at the moment. P22 for Danny overall. And we have the 2 guys actually toward the front of the Premier Division who are right on top of one another. Not too much separating Ostick and Murphy. So we might see these guys do battle at, well, very, very shortly. And actually, not that long ago, we saw Josh pass Mike. Let's go back and take a look at how that happened. We see them going side by side there toward the end of the lap. I think it is. Yes, it is. And wow, doing side by side a hell of a lot. And Josh gets that move done nicely to take the lead in the Premier class heading down the Ullman Straight. And let's see, was he ever in with an opportunity of getting that position back? Was Mike Murphy. Let's see, he does jink to the inside, thinks better of it, and stays where he is. That's Ostick taking the lead in the Premier class. And Sebastian Bonnet has actually put himself in between the 2 of them. So what has happened? Ostick in the pit lane and Mike Murphy still on the track. So let's keep an eye out for when Murphy comes into the pits and see if these guys are going to come out anywhere near one another. Heavy activity in the pit lane at the moment. A handful of drivers have just come out, and we've got 4 or 5 of them in there at the moment. Nobody going quicker than a 17-second pit stop as things stand.
I don't think it's any surprise that we are seeing all 3 of our class leaders staying out for as long as they can, because it just means that they don't have to try and fight their way through too much traffic. If they can keep going, yes, we're seeing a couple of drivers lap down, but if they can keep going, then they're likely to have a clearer track in front of them and less problems arising from any kind of traffic. So I think Raym, Lucchese, Murphy, Brande, they're all going to be staying out as long as they can, just to keep this going. And this kind of rhythm going for them for as long as possible, because if you're in this kind of good little rhythm, I know, Joe, you'll probably be able to speak to this as well, that you don't necessarily want to make a pit stop if you don't have to. If it's going to break that rhythm and possibly put you into a zone where you're going to have to be fighting, you're not able to hit the apexes in the same way that you could 5-10 minutes ago. So I think this is a good little strategy. It's just a case of how long can they go, I think.
Yeah, my approach is just as you say. It's always best, I prefer to go as long as I can. You know, minimise the weight in the fuel tank, minimise the amount of time that you have to fill up for. On the other hand, sorry, should I say it? But my preference is always to run the car as light as we can throughout the entire race distance, which is something that I think is always preferable. Obviously, if you're maybe in a battle or if you're in a pack and you think it's quicker to come in early, then of course you're going to make that decision. But unless you have an incident, I think that's the only other alternative. So at the moment, we're seeing these guys staying out, running the fuel as low as they can. Just under 19 minutes has passed, and Mike Murphy setting the purple lap time in the Premier class. It was a 9 flat, I believe. Pierre Berezg in the pit, and a huge gap down to Dennis Curler. So all looking good at the moment for Mike Murphy. The same can be said for Francois Brande, who's just crossed the line. He's 12 seconds ahead of John Ludbrook, so a healthy margin ahead. The same that can be said for the standings is current in the order. Mike Murphy well ahead of his rivals, Francois Brande well ahead of his rivals, but the guys at the front of the elite right on top of one another.
Yeah, everybody just all over the circuit really at this point, after nearly half an hour of racing and some pit stops sprinkled in to help with that. Still, we're seeing the likes of Pierre Berez come into the pit lane after he had issues, didn't he, at the final corner earlier on in the race. Lucchese needs to make sure he gets through here. Cannot hang around behind Andrew Fellows at all, and he will get through to the inside, but will be slightly offline coming towards Le Mans curve, but should be able to get back onto the racing line, and indeed does, well before that right-hand turn. Still 5 tenths behind and trying to close, but it's just he's just sitting at just that extra couple of tenths too far back that he's not able to make any kind of send anywhere. And it must be something to get a little bit frustrating for Luke Lucchese. But let's see if he tries anything on the strategy or whether he follows in Justin Rehm. Don't rule out a little mistake in the pit lane. We've seen a couple of drivers miss their boxes, so that could still happen as well.
Yeah, the last lap, we'll see what they do as they cross the line, but the last lap between these two drivers separated by only 1/100th of a second. Let's watch the timing tower update. It's a 1:18.1 and another 1:8.1, so less than a tenth again between, less than 100th again, sorry, between these two. So going toe to toe, absolutely. But Lucchese does need to find an improvement, and on the face of it, Justin did actually extend the margin ever so slightly on that last lap, so not quite going in the favour of Lucchese as things stand. But one slip up, and Lucchese will be all over the back of the Porsche. And as we say, plenty of opportunity to make up a fraction of a second, if not more, while you're in the pit lane. And it's Francois Brandet, as we said, leading the way at the moment. I think who's that ahead of him? That's Hussein Sarika Dazzler ahead in the Premier class. We're seeing Cass, Coley and Coolant all entering the pit lane now, and someone has got themselves into the 16 seconds for a pit stop. So times coming down there, people making more effective stops as the racing goes on. And before we know it, everybody will be in the pit lane. More than half of the drivers have come in. It's only the top 11 down from Rehm to Aston who are yet to serve their stop. Let's take a look at that in the full timing tower to get a better picture of that. So 4 drivers in the Premier class yet to stop. Brandet, the only Evo driver still out there going, and the top 6 in the Elite pushing it as far as they can as well. I'm going to ride back on board with the leaders of the race to see if one or if both dive into the pit lane at the same time.
Yeah, Rehm, Lucchese, they're coming towards the final corner now, so we won't have too long to find out with only 15 minutes left on the clock. So about the same amount of time that we had for the sprint race not too long ago, just about 45 minutes ago, in fact. So in towards the final corner with the Grid and Go machine of Justin Rehm. Let's see, can he keep it close to the inside line? You bet he can. Luke Lucchese going a little bit further wide, but it looks like into the pit lane is coming Justin Rehm and Luke Lucchese. So they both decide that this is the time. Will they both hit their marks? Will they both have a similar stop? This could be critical on whether Justin Rehm can have an extra 10 points of an advantage in the championship come the final round at Zolder.
Humphrey and Chioka also follow suit. You can see Lucchese taking that sort of diagonal line across the pit lane. Let's see if that gives him any time. And he's just, let's watch this actually, see, theoretically one of them could get half a second short of fuel stop, and they could come out side by side as they exit the pit lane, something that we've been hoping for. Let's see then who's going to be the first to make that jump. Lucchese revs his engine, he's ready to go, almost neck and neck. Lucchese, oh look at that, they're going to be bumper to bumper. They came out the pit box at the exact same time. Lucchese though with the quicker stop by the best part of a second there. So this is going to really rage on for the final 15 minutes here. Lucchese might fancy putting Justin under pressure while he's here. Maybe try and get a move done and put him under some pressure. Let's see what happens. Could be a move going into turn 7.
I think he really has to capitalise on this now. He's got this much closer. Yes, it's only a couple of tenths, but it could make all the difference. The only issue is, look, he's just not had the best of exits out towards the hairpin. He's not going to be close enough to make a send here, and that may be his best chance gone. He's still going to be right tucked up behind Justin Rehm for the time being, but it's just not the kind of advantage that he was looking to try and avoid Rehm having. He so nearly got him in the pit lane, and it was so tight on the exit, but Justin Rehm just had enough through that opening sector to keep himself ahead, and I think he'll fancy himself to get to the end in the lead. Chioka being up in P3 as well means that Humphrey's got a little bit more work to do to get himself back on the podium, but I mean the rest of the elite class are a long way back from the top 2.
So here is a nice 4-car battle here. It's Aston, Coolan, Stace and Kenyon battling for P6 at the moment in the Premier class. So the drivers closest to one another on the circuit, all battling inside their class for some significant points here. The difference between 6 and 9, definitely, well, any point is obviously noticeable, but some, you know, the closer you get to the top 5, the bigger the margins get. At the moment, that's in the favour of Aston, who had an unfortunate opening round and was involved in an incident last week as well, so he'll be optimistic to keep that car in the straight line. The orange Mercedes, followed by the orange McLaren, followed by the kind of orange Porsche, actually.
Yeah, all the tinges as they work their way through Cunningham Corner. It's almost a bit of deja vu if you're Martin Kenyon, where he is, looking up in front. He's almost seeing 3 cars at once. Doesn't know if it's a some kind of optical illusion or not, but he's got to try and find his way through somehow. It's nice to see this little battle towards the closing stages. Aston Coulin stays Kenyon. A lot of drivers in that midfield in that Premier class, and it is quite tight. The likes of Rob Pickle and Dennis Curler are only split by 1 point coming into this race. Rob Pickle looking like he's going to be gaining a bit of a march there, but even so, you've got, I mean, who's in this battle? So you've got Henry Coulin, who's not too far behind Rob Smith, who's not here tonight. He's looking to get himself into the top 10, and this result would do so into the final round. So a lot on the line for these guys, even if it isn't the championship. They're still going to be fighting over every single position in the championship, because it will matter to them, and especially those guys on the edges of getting a trophy, because who doesn't want a trophy? Come on.
You're totally right. I've got almost too many at this point, not to brag, but I've been doing this for a long time, and yeah, the trophy's so widespread, you know, there's so much opportunity for these guys to get the trophies. As we said, the top 5 in each class and the top 5 teams, so, you know, best part of 35 drivers will get their hands on a trophy come the end of the year, which is one of the benefits and one of the, let's say, USPs of this league. Not that we're not aware of anybody else that does that, so definitely a great thing put on by Mr. Bostock and the team over at Kameh for making that happen. I know it's sometimes a long process to get them all sent out, especially to those guys who are further afield. We've had issues in the past where they've not been reached, but I think we've ironed those out at the moment, so it's always good when the guys share those images when they receive them. And they've been streamlined a little bit over the last couple of years, which are always nice to see. Different headers and different styles. So I got mine actually just the other day in the post, so got that set up earlier today, which is nice. But yeah, as you were saying, so plenty of points still on offer, and it's good after such a long race, 35 minutes in at the moment, to still have so many cars battling for position. Not just battling for position on the track, battling for points in class. These guys is one case. We've got another battle here, which I'll cut to, between Orlemans. He's got Ottens in behind. This is the battle for P8 in the Evo class. I believe that's Ashley Brooks just ahead there. No, it's not. It's Jeremy Orlemans with the same livery as Ash, I think, from memory. And then ahead, it's Mike Murphy, who's in a nice position with these 2 cars ahead of Josh Ostick. So they clearly weren't able to, you know, when one of them came into the pit lane, the other hasn't been able to make up time. I'm just going to compare those two. Actually, it was 17.8 in the pit lane, and it was a 24-second stationary stop for Ostick. So that difference there, the best part of 6 seconds, is what has cost Ostick in the final stint of this race, as Ryan Otten slips up the inside of Orlemans and takes that place for P8.
I think the important thing for Ostick, though, at the moment getting up into P2 is the position of the likes of Martin Kenyon and Stephen Donnelly, because at the moment, if Josh Ostick was to finish where he is, which is P2, he'd pick up 90 points. For Martin Kenyon, he's down in P8, so we'd only be picking up 48 points in comparison. And then, when you look at where Stephen Donnelly is, he's down in P10, and that's 36 points, which would mean that going into the final race of the season, the battle for P2 would have Donnelly on 7.54, Ostick on 7.39, and Kenyon on 7.27, so 3 drivers split by 27 points. Fighting for P2 in the championship. At the moment, coming into this race, it's 69, so it really looks like it could be closing into the final round. And Ostick, even if he doesn't get the win, will surely know that his rivals in his championship picture are falling a little bit further back towards him. And with the kind of form that he's on, you'd be really, really hard-pressed to doubt that he'd be able to get himself to P2 in the championship come next week.
There's an incident just a moment ago between Sebastian Bonnet, again unfortunate this time, but heavy over the sausage curb, and then a double helping of contact by the McLaren. Does well to hold the brakes. Oh, no he doesn't. I thought he did, and then he kind of exited the circuit from guys who'd already tried to avoid him, and took 1 or 2 of them with him. No harm done long term, I don't think. But yeah, unfortunate for Sebastian, who has already seen the wall at Sunset Bend, and now once again in the opening part of the lap is spun around once again. This pack still going strong. Ryan Ottens joining on the back of it, having got ahead of Jeremy Orlemans at the start of the previous lap, and already all over the back of Mike Murphy. As we said earlier, Mike would be wise not to get involved with this too much and let the likes of Ottens and Allmans get after Chelcraft, what will be a top 9 comprised of purely elite drivers. Kenyon, Murphy, as he's done well throughout the entire season, managing the faster drivers around him, managing the elite class, and at the moment he's got to do that once more. And Lucchese, sadly, dropping off the back of him, it seems. He was very, very tight on pit exit, was about half a second behind him before they went into the pit lane. Now it's up to nearly 9 tenths.
It is, and it looks like it's growing a little bit each lap. Justin Rame gaining a little bit in confidence with each tour of the circuit. Jay Cooley looking right on the back of Sebastian Bonney, but he's having to fight it out with the is that the Camo GP2 driver? I think it is indeed. As we work our way through turn number 1, it's not James Bostock. I've seen him in the YouTube chat tonight, but he is going to make sure that he gets through on Ludbrook into turn 2, and the P2 man in the Evo class not got too much to say about that. But again, Ludbrook, in a similar scenario to what I was talking about in terms of the battle for P2 in the class, Ludbrook is fighting with Andrew Fellows, and into this race it was a 13-point gap. But if Ludbrook finishes in 2nd and Fellows finishes down in 7th, well, that's going to be a 36-point swing, and John Ludbrook will have quite a nice advantage in P2 going to the final round. So still a little bit to fight for those guys.
Absolutely right, and we see the 2 teammates here, the sister teams of Flatline Racing Red and Flatline Racing Blue of Nevea and Fellows sharing the track at the moment down in P8 in the Evo class toward the back of the grid. And something obviously happened to Howarth earlier on as well, because he's 15 seconds off the back of these guys, so not the same results that we saw earlier. And we've had a pass here by Stephen Donnelly on Martin Kenyon earlier on for P8 in the Premier class. Let's see how we got it done. The 2 McLarens down heavy onto the brakes as they headed through turn 10, and Donnelly does hang around the outside, does fight the position back actually, and let's see, can Kenyon get that back? Moves over through 13, and Donnelly gets a full car length ahead before the entry to the corner and says goodbye and takes P9. However, just as I say that, Kenyon's actually got the move back. Let's catch up with that as we do, heading toward the end of the lap now on the entry and on the run down towards Sunset Bend. I think he's just going to have the pace here, might even get himself ahead before they turn into the corner, which he has, and Donnelly backed out and under the slipstream once again. Those guys exchanging blows on the same lap time. Here's Rob Pickle and Hussein Sarakadesla right at the start of the lap through turn 2 and 3 with Dennis Curler. This is the battle for the podium actually in the Premier class, so lots on offer here. Let's hope that these guys can keep it clean with just 4.5 minutes to go. It's Pickle with the advantage at the moment, but Huss and Curler, this will be the battle to watch out for sure, while we have Lucchese now within half a second of Justin Rem. So it's all coming to a head in the final 4 minutes of this feature race before the drivers have one last chance next week in the final round.
Yeah, we really are getting to crunch time in the championship. I mean, it doesn't help for us that we watched round 8 yesterday. We're watching round 9 now. That it's almost like the end of the championship's almost crept up on us with almost, 300 points being won on the YouTube channel in the last 30 hours or so. So a lot of action, but it means for the drivers that there's only 100 points still to win, so their chances are really going to narrow after this race. Everything that they can win in this race is all that they can win next week. So definitely going to be, I think, seeing a couple of drivers being really keen to make these moves, and Martin Kenyon is one of them. Stephen Donnelly, he's fighting with, of course, these two are much higher in the championship than their current position in the race would suggest. They're still going to be side by side on the exit through Tower Turn. They'll make their way down in towards Bishop, but they are still going to be locked side by side. Got to be careful, though. A couple of drivers in behind who aren't in the Premier class, who wouldn't mind making a couple of moves. That's Jay Corley and Sebastian Bonnet sitting right on the tail. Right on the outside from Martin Kenyon. What a move that would be if he can make it. He's not going to be able to do it, and the inside line will favour his rival Donnelly in towards Le Mans, who should keep it there for the time being. But we are really running out of time now. 3 minutes to go. This battle is far from over, though.
It is, and the gap ahead is still there. We can ride on with Rob Pickle, Sarika Desla and Curler in a moment to see who takes that final podium position. Is he going to send it? No, he's not. He might be able to get the switchback and the run out of the final corner. He's got his foot to the floor, a little bit of a wobble there over the bumps, and he's just had to back off couldn't quite get the smooth throttle application, is what I was looking for, to get the good run on Donnelly ahead. So at the moment then, it's actually Corley who's got himself past. So really not the best corner there. And 3 wide nearly, here we go, through turn 1. Are we all going to keep it clean? Corley is going to be on the outside. Room is afforded. There's still 3 wide. Oh, very close to contact, and that is contact. And that is Kenyon in the wall, and that's going to be damage with just 2 minutes to go. That's not what you like to see for the driver who is in the top 3 at the Premier Class at the moment.
No, it almost looked like a bit of an unfortunate incident, actually, as they made their way through turn 1, well, towards turn 2. Difficult to really pick your way through there, but Martin Kenyon coming off by far the worst of anybody. The 2-1-1 there of Jeremy Orlemans, it's a little bit of a paint job, isn't it? Or hasn't it had since he's returned after a couple of weeks off? But Ben Childcraft isn't worrying about that. He's just worrying about getting through. Of course, Ryan Otten's leading this little train. Ottens, who really hasn't necessarily been in the thick of it in the last few weeks. Yes, he picked up a podium at the Red Bull Ring, but that was his first podium since all the way back at Laguna Seca. He's still in P4 in the championship and fighting over that position with Ben Childcraft. So these points could be critical as we work our way towards the final week next week.
Yeah, looking up and down the sheet, we have a nice... let me show you this. We have a nice top 9 comprised of elites. Then we have the next 5 all in Premier. Then we've got the Evo champion of Brande in the mix as well. So not too much chopping and changing, which is always interesting because some guys don't like to battle outside of their class. But in this final race, we've got all things on the table and everybody will want to take those positions. Let's cut back to this pack as they head through Sunset Bend. It's the final position left on the Premier Class podium. Rob Pickle has extended that margin ever so slightly ahead of Sarah Kadesla and Curler, but anything can happen. It is the white flag. This is the final lap of the race and the final lap of the penultimate round before we get underway next week for our final round of the season. And it looks though, at the moment, that the likes of Mike Murphy and Francois Brandet, the current championship leaders, have done all they can this week. Let a little bit deep by Pickle, who's going to invite pressure through the S's in Sector 1. It's going to be an interesting run now down towards Turn 7. Is Dennis Curler going to be in prime position here? Let's ride on board with him. See if these two go side by side, which maybe they will. Defense by Pickle. Curler does the right thing by moving to the outside line at the earliest opportunity. Huss moves again over to the left-hand side a little bit late, and they're both off the road. You could see that coming, I'm sorry. And that is an easy move there by Curler to move up and take that P3 in the end. Pickle falling down the order. Hussein carries on. Let's cut back quickly before we reach the end. In fact, no, let's not, because Justin Rem is about to cross the line and we want to see him over the line.
Yeah, and what a race it's been for him. Again, win tonight. He's going to pick up all 150 points. He's forward off Luke Lucchese, and he is going to win here at Sebring for the second time and just give himself that extra chance in the championship in 1 week's time. William Humphrey will come home to recover in the end to P3, but he lost a lot of time to Raymond Lucchese in the second half of that race. But Mike Murphy in the Premier Class will be coming around the final few corners soon, and he will be taking the title, as will Brandet. Here comes Kaz holding off Yanis Hulbert. Good results for them. But what a season it's been for him, Joe. Here comes Mike Murphy. Yet another win for him. He's going to win the title by a distance.
Yeah, it's said and done. We've been waiting for a while for this to come, and there he is. He crosses the line, takes the checkered flag. Some donuts off in the distance, but that is Mike Murphy. He deserves a few donuts for himself as well. Josh Ostick comes across the line in second place ahead of Dennis Curler, who was the beneficiary of that incident that we caught earlier on. He'll be satisfied with that P4 finish ahead of Hussein Sarakadesla. And here's Francois Brandet. Is that enough for him as well, Dara?
More than enough. He's going to win the title comfortably. I think now with that win, and with Andrew Fellows finishing, with John Ludbrook finishing where he is, he's going to end up having a 178-point advantage to anybody else. Now, obviously, there's only 100 points left. So Brandet finally getting across the line. It's his first win in a month, I think.
Wow, yeah, it's a good point, actually. I'm going to get that up now and take a look. You are totally right about that. He hasn't won since the fifth round when he had that amazing streak where he got 6 wins in a row. So what a way to round off his championship. Big congratulations to Mike and to Francois on their wins. Ludbrook and Steve Rubino. What a night for Steve Rubino as well. On home soil, as we said, a race win and a podium. Great for him. And actually, it's his first race win of the season and only his third and fourth podium of the season as well. So congratulations to Mr. Rubino in the Flat Cap Racing team. And that's wrapped up what has been an eventful night, and I'm glad that we can finally crown a few champions. And I'm not sure about the teams, but something would tell me that that's pretty much said and done as well. So Francois and Mike Murphy will have a double whammy of championships to celebrate, I'm sure, for tonight.
Yeah, also a good couple of nights in the elite class. Yes, the championship margin is going to be 73 points for Justin Rain, but, you know, looking further back, there's been a nice couple of evenings. Jeremy Chioka, having his best night of the season, picking up well in excess of 100 points. He's now comfortably in 6th in the championship, trying to close up there. Kaz Brinkhausen, after only joining us 3 weeks ago in Portimao, already rising to P13 in the championship. And only 14 points off the likes of Thomas Saborin, who DNF'd in that race. And Yannis Albert, picked up more points tonight than he has done all season long, and a decent night for him in total as well.
Well, with that all said and done, we can take a look now at the final standings of our feature race tonight. So once again, Justin Rame crosses the line in P1 for Grid & Go Esports and takes home maximum double points in that 45-minute feature. Closely followed by Luke Lucchese, who had got a good chance coming out the pit lane right on the bumper of the Porsche, but in the end, 1.6 seconds the difference separating he from the top step of the podium. William Humphrey recovered well after an incident earlier on in both races, really. He finished in P3 on the podium, ahead of Jeremy Chioka and Kaz Brinkhausen in P5. Yannis Albert finished in P6 ahead of Ryan Ottens and Jeremy Orlemans, the top 8, with Ben Chalcraft and Sebastian Bonnet, the top 10. Jay Corley and Chaz Draycott, the last of the finishers in P12, with Saborin and Radloff unable to finish the race.
In the Premier class, and in the feature class, and it's the feature race, Mike Murphy won yet again, and in doing so finally gets himself across the line and will win the championship. He's going to have a more than 200-point advantage coming out of this race, but he won comfortably again. 10 seconds it was ahead of Josh Ostick, who closes his gap to P2 in the championship. Dennis Curler with another podium for him. He got 2 at Manicourt. This is his 3rd of the season at Sebring. Hussein Zarkadessa with a P4, one of his best results of the season. In fact, his 2nd best result of the season. His best result coming in P3 in another 45-minute race. Robin Aston and Henry Coolan 5th and 6th. There wasn't much to split them, with only a couple of tenths between them across the line. Rob Pickle, the American, came home in 7th, ahead of Stephen Donnelly. P2 man in the championship could only finish 8th. Pierre Berez and Rob Mackay in the top 10. It was Martin Kenyon and Matt Stace on the lead lap. Maxim Dimitrov a lap down, but he's more than close enough to pick up the points for P13. But sadly for him, not exactly what he would have wanted tonight.
And finally then, let's take a look at the Evo class standings. The champion in the Evo division, he's been on it all season. He had probably the best half to the first half of a season that we've seen in ESR to date. Not quite the second half that he would have wanted, but in the end, Francois has done enough to win the title. So congratulations to him. And he finished ahead of John Ludbrook. Nearly 11 seconds the difference between the top 2. And then Steve Rubino next. As we said already to him, a good night on his around his home circuit for Flat Cap Racing. Danny Weir next ahead of Ashley Brooks in the top 5, with Charlie Stothard, Andrew Fellows and Luis Nevea the top 8. Matthew Noel and James Howarth will also classify, having finished only 1 lap down. So then, that wraps up the standings. And as always, I'm sure we'll have a few guys who want to have a little chat with us. So in the meantime, I will prepare the replay and we'll get on with what we normally do, Dara.
Yeah, looking forward to speaking to a couple of guys. Let's first bring in William Humphrey, of course, our man who has been fighting in the Elite Championship all season long. William, welcome in. I mean, there must be disappointment on your side, of course. There was the contact with Justin really early on into the opening race. it put you into a really bad position. You weren't able to recover too far in the opening race with only about 10 minutes to do so. Second race, you got up to P3 and then weren't quite able to close the gap to either Luke or Justin. How do you reflect on the race? Because again, you gained as much as you really could in the second race, but I'm sure you won't be too happy about what happened in the opening round.
Well, I'll start off with a good thing. The second race was good. I was really happy with my pace, actually. I actually beat my record that I've set for a while, and there was just nothing touching Justin or Luke today. They did amazingly. The first race was less fun, but I need to look back at it properly, but there's nothing else to say apart from GG's to Justin.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunate in the end. You obviously recovered nicely, finished yourself up on the podium in that second race. Still all to fight for, and with the other 2 championships having been wrapped up, with the other 3 championships actually having been wrapped up tonight, it's all eyes on the pair of you next week. And, you know, you never know, there could be something in your favour starting next week potentially. So we could see an interesting battle around Zolder. How do you look forward to that kind of circuit? Is it something you're more familiar with?
I've done a bit in previous games in ACC, but I'm not as familiar with it in iRacing as I have been with the Sebring. I do know that the Merc will be good there because of all the bumps, so hopefully I can use that well.
Very good, very good. And if you can, Will, just give us a little wrap-up. This is obviously your first season with us, and as we look ahead to the final round, it's been, you know, you've kind of arrived on the scene and given Justin a run for his money. It's still all up for play, but yeah, how have you enjoyed going wheel to wheel with him throughout the season, and how have you enjoyed the racing overall?
With Justin and Luke in some places, it's been amazing. We have a real proper respect for each other on the track, and I think that we are quite potentially the top of ESR.
I totally agree. Totally agree with that, especially on these Monday nights. You brought us a lot of entertainment. So, yeah, and as you say, the Mercedes, how was that today around a notoriously bumpy circuit, a lot of curbs as well? You must have felt more comfortable. We saw a lot of guys in the Mercedes in amongst all the action today. So did the car feel good around a circuit like this?
In the first 5-7 laps, it felt right compared to the rest of the cars. But then after that, the tyres just got way too hot and I couldn't save them. Both me and my teammate were struggling at the end, so we just kind of got what we had there and then kept our X's down.
Very good. Well, positives and negatives to take, I'm sure, from tonight, but overall, still, you know, all things can be won or lost in the next week. So good luck to you, and as always, if there's anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, you can do that now.
A new person today, we have a new mate called Luke, who's spotting me and Charlie all throughout the race, and he really helped me out with where I was, where Justin was, and who was behind me and who was in front. Really, really great guy. Very
good. Good stuff, Will. Well, thanks for joining us again, and good luck to you next week. Fingers crossed you get yourself another good result.
Thank you, guys.
Humphrey then, who is happier than I would be personally, which full credit to him for doing so, and it's exactly why he's able to fight in championships as high as he is. So that was William. Thanks, William, for joining us. I'll also quickly bring in Luke Lucchese, who has had another good night. Luke, welcome in to the booth again. We've been egging you on to get that win again, so close tonight, but another couple of second places, you've really consolidated your spot in P3 in the championship. P2 is still within reach, but I mean, how much are you looking for in terms of gaining into the final round when you've had such good pace over the last few weeks?
Yeah, look, I think that was the goal this season, is to just try and catch, Justin and William. Like I said previously, they just ride GT4s, so it's difficult chopping and changing between the cars. But I'm starting to understand how to drive this thing, and I think it showed tonight with the pace. So it was close, but yeah, I'm just missing that little bit. Maybe if the back markers were a little bit more in my favor, I could have done a move, but yeah, it just wasn't on.
Yeah, we saw, Luke, that you were gaining, and then when you got into the pit lane, it was quite dramatic actually. You both left almost bumper to bumper. You just got a slight edge on him, having arrived in your pit box early and leaving at the same time. Were you optimistic about trying to make a move there, or was it kind of, were you always aware that Justin had the pace and was probably going to get away with you? In the end, I think you were about a second away. There was a time when you were maybe only half a second back, but never looked like you really had a full opportunity to go alongside.
Yeah, look, I got stuck behind a lapper on the last lap, and I think that's where Justin got the gap. He just got it ahead, about 5-6 corners before. So that slowed me down, and then after, it's the last lap, so there's no point in trying to push, to risk making a mistake, to risk losing the P3. So, but yeah, look, the move could have been on, but it would have been a do or dive send, and yeah, it's not worth it for me to make a do or dive send and then take out the leader. I'm sure William would have been happy if I'd done that.
Yeah, maybe it would have been, but all's fair, I guess, and you've made the right call there, not to risk that. Let those two sort of do battle themselves, get on with it. And how is the Porsche around this sort of circuit? Obviously notorious for its bumps, its curves, and the tight, twisty nature. And then similar next week around Zolder as well, a very interesting circuit. So again, we know the Porsche has probably been the strongest car this season, but how did it feel around this kind of circuit?
It felt good. They were saying, obviously the Porsche isn't as good over the curves compared to the Mercedes, but compared to the GT3s, this thing just flies over curbs like they're not even there. So, being used to the way GT3s hit curbs, this is a pleasant surprise on how you can ride the curves. It doesn't just send you off into the air. So, yeah, I enjoyed driving the car. I think the pace was very consistent. The car remained very consistent. The tires stayed, together. So, yeah, no, I'm very happy with it.
Very good, mate. Well, the season coming to a close already, and before we know it, it'll be next week, and we'll be in the season finale. So before we get there, as always, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just a shout out to my parents who watch all the streams, and yeah, everybody watching on the grandstands.
Nice.
And of course, you guys for the commentary.
Amazing. Thank you, Luke. Always good to speak to you. And one last go at it next week, potentially, to try and get that top step. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'll definitely try.
Yeah, I know you will, mate.
All right.
I know you will. Good stuff, man. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
It's Peter, Luke Lucchese again. Always good to hear from him, especially on a good day. 135 points isn't something to be ashamed of either. So good work from Luke tonight. But we will now bring in our championship leader in our elite class, Justin Rame, who joins us now. Justin, welcome in. It couldn't have gone much better for you tonight in terms of the points. Of course, a little bit of a shame with the incident with William near the start of the race, but 150 points. You've maximised your chances going into Zolder, and you're going to have a 73-point lead with only 100 points on the table. You must be pretty pleased about all those facts. And how are you feeling after fighting with Luke, just about pulling away? Did you feel like you were under pressure, or did you feel like you had it in the bag?
I'd like to apologize to William. I'm not too sure exactly what happened. He was much slower. He was much slower at the corner than I was expecting, and even looking at the replay, he was like 10 to 15 kilometers slower. So, but it was a little bit of a slight bump, and it was partially on my fault. I guess I probably should have checked up more. But as for second race, Luke definitely kept me honest. That was for sure. It seemed like if he was just a little bit better in like a couple of the sectors, he probably would have been right there with me the whole time. He seemed to have a lot quicker pit stop than me, but I took an extra lap of fuel because I thought the race was going to go one extra lap. But yeah, other than that, it was the only part I had I needed to get past was making it 3 wide at sunset, which was a little bit of a gamble, but I had to get past those guys in order to have a gap to Luke, or else if I had to wait, Luke was going to be right on me again. So,
and those would have been blue flags, I imagine, Justin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we missed that actually. Luke described toward the end of the race, you found a little bit of a gap. Maybe that's what he was talking about there. But it was good to see. Obviously, the first race aside, the longer feature. How you guys manage each other, manage the tires, and obviously the fuel. As you said, with that kind of thing in mind about potentially taking an extra lap of fuel, it was exciting to see you guys leaving the pit lane side by side. And what is it like? Do you kind of manage any drivers in a particular way? Obviously, you're probably more used to racing William than some others because he's been there or thereabouts all season. But with the likes of Lucchese in behind, who we know is such a strong competitor, you keep your eyes on your mirrors. Do you try and approach things differently depending on who you have around you?
Not really, to be honest. I was just kind of keeping an eye on the gap and seeing where I was gaining and not gaining, and that's pretty much just driving my own race.
Good, good. And next week then, the finale already. You currently sit at the front of the standings, although it's not said and done yet. We've already spoke about how the other championships were wrapped up tonight, so it's just you and Will left to go. Obviously, Luke's still in there, but we know that it's you two who've gone all the way this season. So, Zolder, a circuit that you're familiar with, or is it something that you perhaps have done less laps on? I know it's not the most common circuit. I know a lot of people won't have too much experience around there, but how do you feel about that going into the finale?
I think it'll be a lot of fun. Zolder's a fun track. It'll driving the Porsche will be miserable, but there because of the curbs and the chicanes. But it still could be a fun race. I think it'll be probably one of the closer races between Will and I on that one.
Good stuff, Justin. Good stuff. Well, thank you for joining us as always. And before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just Grid and Go Esports for helping me out.
Good stuff, man. Thank you, and good luck next week.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
And Justin Rame, of course, who is such a good driver. I'm just going to refer to... there's another series that I do commentary on, and I'm just trying to see, because I remember seeing his name on that sheet a lot of times. Zolder, they haven't raced. I was seeing if he had any records there. So that doesn't really give us too much of an indication. But either way, what a driver he is. And we'll have to see if he can wrap up that title next week. Now, we have a couple more drivers waiting for us. I will quickly say, because of course we don't have Mike Murphy waiting for us, I will give a quick note on him, even though we can't hear from him. After 21 races, he has won 1,011 points, which is, absolutely incredible. That's an average points of, what's that? I don't actually know because the format wouldn't work. But he's got a 245-point lead over anybody else, over Stephen Donnelly and Josh Ostick, who are fighting out for P2, and we're going to have to see his procession next week. But with that in mind, we will move down to the Evo. Before we bring in our champion, we're going to have a quick chat with Danny Weir, who is joining us in the booth. Danny, welcome in. Nice to be able to hear from you tonight. Great results for you this evening. You've only had 3 top 10s this season. 3 top 5s, I should say, this season. All 3 of them in the last 3 races, 2 of them tonight, and over 100 points for you this evening. So you must be thrilled about how it's gone tonight.
Yeah, very. I'm only here to congratulate the DXD Emerald team, because I believe they've sealed up the drivers, the constructors. But do you know what? I didn't realise how close the Cyan team were up the top of the grid. So on that table. So when I finished and the guys went, "Oh, by the way, you guys are in second," I was like, "Wait, what?" But no, it was a great race. I said wasn't expecting anything from today. I had a really bad day in the GT3s on Thursday with this, and I came into this with no real hope, and then ended up finishing my 2 best finishes of the season. So quite happy with that.
Yeah, Danny, in the teams, you came in tonight, just I think 27 points ahead of the Dennett Racing team, but with, for example, with Dale not racing anymore, and I don't think Charlie had the best night, you guys bringing home any points, but some strong points has obviously extended that gap. So a great season for DXT overall, but as you say, very, very good job for Francois and Mike, who are both champions in their own right, but also Stephen as well, who's helped you guys really dominate the team's championship this season.
No, I said Stephen's been great. It's been nice to race with him. Obviously, we know DXD and JSD are very close as a team. We're very friendly with each other. But to get him racing with DXD was brilliant, and he's a good person to have in the comms as well. He's very light and keeps the mood going. And he scored some great points. Like when, for example, Mike's not been there, or if Francois not had the best of races, you know that Stephen's going to be able to pick up the pieces, which is what he's done, which has been brilliant. He's been fantastic for us.
That's exactly what you need, not Stephen's had a very good season, right up there, just behind Mike. He's best part of 200 points behind Mike now, but still the best of the rest, you could say. And so if he's fighting toward the front and bringing home points for the team when the others have their off days, that's all you can ask for, really. Speaking on yourself then, how did you find that evening tonight? We saw at one point you, Rob, and James were sharing the track, which was quite interesting to see, all the chrome and knowing that you guys were in the same team. So talk us through that and any other sketchy moments for you out there tonight?
So on track, obviously there's no real team order, especially with the two Cyans, me and James. So it was fight clean, but you're entitled to fight. So that was good, having a little battle with James, making sure we were like respectful, not ruining each other's races. And unfortunately, his race got kind of ended by an elite driver who kind of missed his braking point. He apologized in the chat, but obviously it does affect James. But yeah, and Rob was just basically saying to me, "Oh yeah, just keep going." I was saying to Rob, "Do you want to let me pass? Should I let you pass? Am I too slowing you down?" He's like, "No, actually, you're faster than me, so just keep going. I'll try and push up to the cars ahead." Obviously, we tried that, but Pierre, I think we're ahead of us in race 2, was really, really, really quick. And yeah, sketchy moments. It's not between the DXD boys. I mean, with other drivers, a couple bits of moving under braking, which I'm not really thrilled about. But end of the day, it is what it is. I'm sure the stewards will look at it and then they'll come to their own decisions if it gets put in. But I'm happy with the way the guys race. Obviously, I know we had a sketchy moment as a team the other week, a bit of an argument in the chat, and that's been resolved. And I've got to say, I got to hold my hands up to it. I'm probably a big part of that. But no, I think the team mentality is really back together now, and it was nice. We was in the race together, and like we're still saying to each other, like, let's work out how we can get the best points for the team without compromising each other, which was quite nice. But yeah, the mentality is definitely back, and it's good to be in that team element again.
Very good, Danny. Very good. Well, I mean, I would ask you to give a shout out, but I feel like you would just say what you just said again. So I'll give you an opportunity, but obviously, if it's things you've already said, then that's understandable.
No, it's just to the boys, and congratulations to Emerald and to Day and Mike. They've been fantastic. But yeah, well done to all of the XD lads as always, and thank you guys for streaming as always. It's been brilliant.
Awesome, man. Good stuff. Well, good luck next week when we close out the season. Hopefully, another positive result for you around that circuit. But for now, we'll let you go, and yeah, we might speak to you next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Cheers, Danny.
Anyway, then, great to speak to him, and great of him to also congratulate the Emerald team on winning the teams as they have done, and they are going to have well over 2,000 points now on this season. So, congratulations to them. That does mean that we can come to our Evo Championship winner. Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Francois Brian Day, but finally, it's your first win in 4 weeks. But it's going to be the one that gets you the title. You're leading by 178 points. There's only 100 points left, so you've got it very firmly in the bag. I mean, you had to start last as well. You had to work your way through the field in race 1. You kind of got through the field at turn 1 on race number 2. How are you feeling, though? Because you finally wrapped up the title.
Yeah, I'm feeling so good right now. I was like legit having no expectations about tonight. I was just in the mindset of I just need to finish both races. No matter where I finish, I just need to try to keep clear of any sort of trouble whatsoever. And considering I love Zolder next week, I was like, if I get just a peaceful evening tonight and I can go balls deep next week and hopefully seal my championship win. But looks like I had my luck coming back to me tonight, and I won tonight. I'm so happy about it. So happy about it.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting, well, I mean, a great season for one, but let's talk about those first 5 weeks where you were the man to beat, the man in form, winning pretty much every single of those races. Then the second half of the season, not the same, and obviously you've had to fend off a few incidents, you've had a few penalties to deal with, and obviously tonight you started toward the back of the grid, but that wasn't enough to slow you down. So, yes, we've still got next week to go, but if you can, just summarise how that's been, how you were feeling in the first 5 weeks, and how it was when things weren't so good, but now, obviously, the relief to have finally got the title.
Well, the first 5 weeks was a bit really unexpected, because like the first round at Suzuka, I think I qualified like 7th, and then with all the incidents happening on, in the first sector of the track in the S's, I managed to just pick positions up one after the other, and I ended up finishing 2nd, then winning the other race. Then Road Atlanta was not so great, but at that point I'm not thinking anything about the car, about the championship. I'm like, this is a car I didn't think I would enjoy that much, so I'm just gonna go and try to enjoy it. as much as possible. And then I think it was starting Manicourt or Hungary, I can't remember. I won 6 races in a row, and it felt unreal because I had no expectations. But then, yeah, I got involved in a lot of incidents, which I believe were due to just my impatience, my still lack of racecraft, or just I'm still fairly new to sim racing, considering I only started to sim race seriously maybe I would say 8 months ago, something like that, and I've had a setup and a proper rig for only 2 months, soon to be 3 months. So I had to relearn everything, and I'm just happy things went my way. I'm now I'm just hoping to become a better driver, trying to fine tune my driving, my racecraft, and just move things forward, and hopefully as good as things were for me in GT4.
So I think what you're trying to say is it'll be straight to Elite for you next season.
Well, considering the rating threshold, I'm already above the Elite one. So, but if I'm ever, I'm not sure yet about doing GT4 season 2. But if I am doing it, I'll happily drive under the Elite colors.
Well, there you go. Let's see. I mean, you've always been there or thereabouts, inside the top 15 overall, if not higher. So definitely got the pace, and obviously, as you say, you've sort of upgraded your system now and again. So it's good that you've reaped the benefits of that. A quick word before you let you go on Zolder next week. You said it's a track that you love. It's a track that I know a lot of people aren't too familiar with, so that might really serve you well to really, really cement the sort of big points difference that you could find yourself with come the end of the season. Yeah,
I think it's a bit of a rare track. It's not used a lot, but it's a track I used to spend a lot of hours around when I was playing Aston Corsa Competizione before transitioning to RSN. So I've not driven it a lot on RSN, but I've did a lot of hours on the other game. So hopefully I can be as quick there as I was back in the days. But yeah, championship's over for me. I hope I'll finish on a high note, but if I don't, it's alright. I'll just try to enjoy the race as much as I can, and now there's another fight in Evo between Lodbrok and Fellows for the second place, and this is what I'll be watching, to be honest.
Yeah, very good point, very good point. Well, as always, Francois, thanks for joining us, and congratulations on the title. Something that's been a long time coming, but you finally got it over the line. So thanks for joining us, and good luck next week. We might speak to you then, once the season is concluded.
Yeah, thanks a lot, lads. I'm just gonna say quick word. I'm very, very proud, and congratulations to my 2 teammates, Stephen Lonley and Mike Murphy. Mike for winning Prem, and Stephen for being so consistent. The 3 of us, we managed to win the team championship, tonight. And yeah, very proud of him. We did as good as we could during the whole season. And yeah, have a good night, lads. See you in a bit.
Yeah, and on that, your Cyan, the Cyan team as well will be right behind, well, not right behind you, but they'll be in P2 as well. So it's been a great season for the 2 DX. Well, obviously, let's not talk about Holland and Mackay, but the 2 of those teams have done very well, and you guys will be well over 2,000 points, and the Cyan guys will probably be 300, 400 or something. So yeah, great result overall for your team.
Thanks a lot, guys. Unexpected, but all for the best. Have a good night.
Good stuff, man. Enjoy your night, enjoy your week, and we'll catch you next week.
Cheers.
After Brandy then, and he's the last driver who's been waiting to interview us, Joe. So I think that means we can wrap it there. But what an evening it's been, and with our 2 champions being crowned, and Mike Murphy getting over 1,000 points. It really does go to show how many points there are on offer. It doesn't really matter how big the championship margin is. There's always points to be won, and Mike Murphy somehow getting as many points as he has at the rate of 48 points a race over the course of 21 races, which is just absolutely incredible.
That is very, very solid. It's always good to wrap up, coming to the end of a championship, seeing all the hard work paying off for a number of drivers who's obviously reached the guys in P1 first. But We've still got lots to check, you know, top 2, top 3, top 5 with the trophies, and then obviously see who finishes in the top 5 of the team standings, which is still right. You know, even the Spontex CDM guys will feel like they can get in there, which they may actually, if we calculate that. They could have caught up because it was only Fellows who was with us tonight, whereas Spontex had 2 or 3 cars with us tonight. So, yeah, lots still to look out for next week in the final round at Zolder. So let me cut to that, and we'll just give a brief wrap-up before we finish for this evening. So, we have a new announcement for Season 2, which was released the other day. So, sign-ups are available for Monday nights with us, and myself and Dara will be back on for that. The community grows and grows. The graphic says 400, it's now 650, so lots and lots of people steaming in for the GT3 Championship. 120 seats sold in that championship already, can you believe it? And well, an amazing achievement for the team, an amazing work by Mr. Bostock for making that all happen, doing a lot to get those drivers to come in. Lots of familiar faces, but lots of new faces. And that will also be held by myself and Dara in the second split, Split B, on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. And the Split A will be back in the hands of Chaz Draycott and Ed May over on the Chaz Draycott Media YouTube channel. So I'm sure we'll do quite well to form some sort of partnership during that season. But for now, we have one more week to go in both of our championships. And you can join us this time next week when we find ourselves at round 10 for the final time at Zolder. So thanks for everyone who has watched along tonight. Plenty of action in the comments and plenty of action on the track, and we'll catch you all next time.